All right, hello everyone, and welcome to Davey Dak Fight Round 7. So this time it's a little bit of a different format than usual. So usually I bring one creator on, but it's a break week, right? And so during the break weeks, I want to bring on a variety of creators to talk about, obviously, what's going on in the story, but also some of their top theories, because there are so many creators throughout YouTube that I feel like have kind of undersung, theories. Sorry, I had a little bit of feedback there. Kind of some undersung, theories that I think really need to get some focus. And, for me, tied to some of my theories and probably some that you've watched on my channel. And, it's just good stuff to talk about. So I do want to let everyone introduce themselves. So first off, since we got Par down there in the corner, I mean, everyone knows Par, but why don't we start off with you, because you're first here on the list, Par Vision.
Yo, I'm excited to be here. Hopefully everyone is enjoying this test of my camp. Well, it's not necessarily test, but the vision is a little hazy. Was on extra dad duty, but I had to stop by to talk to everybody about these theories that we got. Right? I think you named it the tinfoil. Was it tinfoil or truth?
Yeah.
I'm excited for that. So, hey, if you guys don't know me, I'm sure you'll find out more about me throughout the stream. So looking forward to it, Dax, and looking forward to talking to the rest of you guys on this call.
Yeah, if you guys don't know who Par Vision is by now, then you've been locked up and impelled down for at least a couple years now. So next, E-Lids.
Guys, logging on here. I do a variety of One Piece theories. So many that I confuse my own self sometimes in the directions I want to go. But lately I've been doing a lot of trying to uncover the mysteries of the Void Century, who's Emu, who's Joy Boy, and whatnot. But if you go back in my channel, I used to make a lot of what is hockey, what is devil fruit, stuff like that. And I want to get back to that soon. But yeah, you can just get a general sense of things from my channel. But I'm really excited today to get back into things, because I've been kind of dead for a while, and talk with all these great theorists and hear their ideas fresh from their mouth, not just from videos, because then I could actually interact. It's be like commenting in live action.
Yeah, and for those who have watched E-Lids and have seen my content, you're going to see a lot of similarities, especially about afros and even Devil Fruit Awakenings. There's a lot of things we're on the same wavelength, and Today there's going to be some good takes from him for sure. Next, Den.
Yo. It's Den Cushy. Very happy to be here, so thank you for the invite, of course. Yeah, it's a good, solid group, so we'll chat some spice. And at the moment, I'm mostly looking at old people in the One Piece world, not in real life, but sometimes in real life too.
And we're definitely going to be talking about that today for sure. That's one of my new favorite theories. I mean, you and I have talked about it a lot, but even mentioned it in a video. So last but not least, Prince.
What's going on, everybody? Name's Prince of All Anime, and just like all these wonderful creators over here, I also make theories as well. And not just that, I just make just videos in general about One Piece, whether it's One Piece Odyssey, just random One Piece thoughts, convincing people to watch One Piece, anything. Hey, I see Preacher in the chat. Yes, I'm repping OPU today, but I'm so thankful to be here. We're gonna have a wonderful discussion. Definitely some crazy chapters that just happened. Possibly talk about those, but theories as well. Gotta love talking about theories, but yeah, I'm ready. Let's get into it.
Hey man, and thanks for being here. And I mean, for those who've been around the channel for a long time, you guys know that Preach and I go way back, because I edited his videos a long time ago, and that's how I got connected to Prince. And I know he's gonna have some good thoughts today too. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. So the format for today is kind of like I said. There's some what I see as undersung theories, things that I want to talk about that a lot of these creators brought up and kind of made me think more about certain situations, right? So I do have some questions or categories, whatever you want to call it, and each of those we're going to start off with a certain creator who has thoughts on that subject. So then they're just going to give their take, their recent video, their theory, whatever it is, and then we'll respond to that and give our thoughts. It'll be a real chill atmosphere, you know what I mean, like usual. But we are going to start off by kind of having each theorist give their take for that specific question, because they do have a video on it, right? And so we're actually going to start with Prince. I told him this before the stream, and Your question is about Sabo. So I want to know generally what's going on with Sabo. First off, is Sabo still alive? And I don't know if you guys could hear that. It was a motorcycle. But Sabo's still alive, and what's Oda's plan? Like, what's whenever he comes back, what's Oda gonna do with him?
Oh shit, okay. A lot of that just lagged, but I think I get the general question, which
Okay.
is what is Sabo's plan and
Yes.
where is he gonna end up, future stuff with
Yep.
Oda's whole plan with the final saga, or just in general right
It-
now.
Is he alive? And whenever he comes back, because I assume he is gonna come back. What's the plan? Sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. A simple answer to the alive question, yes, he's gotta be. I don't think Oda will off-screen Sabo, not off-screen Sabo, but I don't think he'll keep saying off-screen, sorry. I don't think he'll make Sabo die immediately just off of a random explosion from Imu. Rather, I think it would be a much bigger reveal and a much bigger build-up. But in my opinion, he's definitely still alive. And when it comes to his plan, I feel like there's a lot of mirroring when it comes to One Piece arcs, specifically when it comes to pre-time skip and post-time skip. So my general theory, which is my most recent theory out on my channel, is that I think Sabo is going to revolutionize the whole Ace announcement and mirror it for the final saga. And what I mean by that is, at the very beginning of the Marineford arc, we see that the King of the Pirates' son, Ace, was revealed, and how the King of the Pirates' bloodline is still alive, with Roger having a son. And that was the most like shocking thing in the entire like One Piece verse at the time, that oh my god, Roger still has a kid. How is this even possible? What's the whole story behind it? So in my opinion, I think that the war is going to start in the exact same way, but mirrored in the opposite sense of Sabo, since he's the only person in the entire world right now who knows of Imu's existence other than the Gorosei Imu, obviously. He's going to mirror that same announcement that Ace had with announcing the reveal or the identity of Imu, exposing the whole dark truth that there's an actual king of the world government and everything, that it's a dictatorship, not a bureaucracy, and that entire situation is going to bring people to a whole new stand in terms of the revolution and completely change the entire atmosphere of One Piece.
Yo,
So that's the general aspect of the theory.
I love that. And also one thing to build off of like the Ace connections is, you know, Ace's dad was Whitebeard, like the, you know, what he would call his dad, right? And for Sabo, he would probably call his dad at this point Dragon, right? Or a father figure at least, right? And remember when Whitebeard came to save Ace, just tying it all together, remember how he like came from under the ocean? Like he came in a ship under the water to come save Ace. I feel like another connection could be like, well, we have Dragon, so like if this whole Sabo thing happens, like Sabo kind of mirrors Ace and, you know, the end of the story and everything, Dragon would come from the sky, right? So it's like the opposite. Like if we're talking about inversions and all that, you know, like I don't know what the situation is, like Sabo gets kidnapped, or you know, we don't know where he is right now. I'm sure he's alive, but whatever happens to him, it's like he announces that, and maybe like, you know, he gets captured or he's threatened or whatever, and then Dragon, that's how Dragon gets involved, is like to save Sabo. And maybe it could be an inversion this time where, you know, Sabo actually makes it, you know, out this time, but I don't know if Dragon would or not. But
Yeah, no, I have that exact same sentiment, which is why even before, I think a year ago, in fact, I made a theory on Sabo, Boa, and Kobe, since they were talking about those three in the whole announcement that Oda made, like, oh no, what's gonna happen to these three?
right.
So I was thinking that like everyone was doubting me, because there was a bunch of people that were like, oh, Sabo's going into Marijoa, he's definitely dead, captured, dead, it's Marineford 2.0 over and over again. We'll definitely see another arc where Sabo's gonna be like captured, and then Luffy's gonna save him with the Straw Hats this time. But in my eyes, I thought the exact opposite. I thought, okay, I think Sabo's gonna escape somehow, some way, and he's gonna end up being the most wanted man in the world. And it turned out that Sabo ended up being a god for revolutionary figures, to the point where they even say in the panel in 1054 that he is seen as an even bigger figure than Dragon.
Do you think,
at some levels,
do you think the reason Dragon is the most wanted man in the world is because he also knows about Emu? Like he's known this whole time, and that's the reason why he has that title?
I think
Is that possible?
it's more so because he started the Revolutionary Army. Because if he did know about the existence of Emu, I think he would tell his extremely top of the line officers about it. And if Sabo was like willing to die or like go to like extreme lengths to get this information out as quick as possible to Dragon and the Revolutionary Army, then I don't think that anybody knows.
Yeah, it's tough because like it seems like you get, you know, like if you say it, you get sniped like immediately, you know. So it's like
That's
maybe
exactly what happened.
right, and so maybe Dragon never has wanted to tell anybody because he's like, I just got to keep this to myself, and maybe that's like kind of Emu's thing is like, I don't like you have to say it somehow. I don't know how that would work, but
It's like Voldemort, where you say his name and then like the presence is alerted to the figure or something. That would be insane.
I actually kind of like that. Well, you know what? That's I have a couple questions that could lead into that, but I probably shouldn't. Well, I want to ask another thing about Sabo real quick, and anyone can answer this because I'm intrigued. But what is Sabo's awakening gonna be like? Like what is? Did he awaken to maybe escape, or when he does, like what's gonna be like the situation? Like why is it gonna matter, or like what is the ability of the awakening gonna do that helps him? Like anyone have any thoughts on that?
I already have preconceived thoughts, but I want to hear everyone else's thoughts first, because I'm looking curious.
I think the flame, the titles that he's got recently, like obviously they didn't just come out of nowhere, but they were kind of like sudden. They definitely suggest to me that like if you're an emperor, you probably can awaken something, or you're definitely on your way. Surely, surely. I don't know what it would be though. I mean, to be honest, that's blowing my mind a little bit thinking about. Like just Sabo's the catalyst, and like if he was awakened as well, that'd just be insane. Like,
I mean, you know, it seems somewhat like Logias. Whenever they awaken, it makes the environment permanently have that environmental factor, right? Which like Logias are environmental factors, so it kind of makes sense. Like you would turn the environment permanently into whatever. And so, but I was thinking, like, if you turn an environment permanently into fire, isn't that like the sun? You know, which is like,
Yeah.
So like, you know, and I mentioned this in a video before, but isn't it weird that like the sun god's brothers, both of them have had the fire powers that basically are like the sun? Like even Ace's attack against Blackbeard, who obviously like has darkness, like a black hole power fruit essentially, right? His attack was called Flame Emperor, and it looked like a sun, right? And so that's a whole thing where now Sabo is named the Flame Emperor, right? So I'm kind of like, I'm not saying that's like how the sun was made or something, but I mean maybe it was how the sun was made, you know, like, or like the core of the earth or something. I don't know, but I thought
could definitely be one of the energy sources like that was talked about. And I did want to say off that theory as well, like it is interesting because we see that this idea of prophecy, particularly when you look back at Marineford, you see Ace dying. And then you see Luffy sort of like obviously he gets like slapped about a little bit, but you see him and the hope he brings. And then Whitebeard says the One Piece is real, which to me indicates he thought that Ace would have been Joy Boy. Ace died, like Whitebeard's like, oh no, this is bad. And then he sees Luffy doing his thing and he's like, oh, okay. But what's always interested me is Sabo definitely doesn't fit into that. And next thing you know, he sees a certain somebody on the throne. And that to me is just like uncharacteristic of the world government. It's like they don't foresee him or something, like he doesn't fit into their plan or something. I don't know. It's a hard one, but yeah.
No, that's interesting. And I also think it's, you know, like I think it's interesting, like a lot of people, including myself, have brought up, you know, like you gotta go, oh, something just happened on Discord. I'm not sure, but I'm gonna fix it.
Somebody's trying to stream the screen. Elids.
Oh, Elids, click stream the screen. I got it. Can you? Yeah. If you fix it, it'll all fix back. You're all good. It's just okay. We're good. Perfect. No problem. I think it's weird. You know, a lot of people have brought up maybe like the One Piece is inside the Earth or whatever, which like inside the Earth, like the core of the Earth is going to be like a sun, right? Like that's what it would look like, pretty much. And it's like maybe I'm reaching too far, but like the way that Ace died was getting like a hole in the center of him. So if he's the sun and there's a hole inside of that, and that's what took him out, it's like, is there something there like taking out the center of the sun is how you would destroy it? Kind of is like the vibe I'm getting. So I don't know. We're reaching pretty far now, but that was just I don't know. Like that kind of just came to me whenever you're bringing that up. But Den, I actually want to, we're talking about Ace dying and all this, which ties to Marineford, obviously. So I want to ask you a question. Where was or is God Valley?
Ooh, I want to hear this.
Good. Okay, cool. So, I mean, I don't even know where to start with this one, and obviously shouts to Coob at the Red Sea for that, because like I know Zagrosh was talking about it as well a long time ago, so there's some crazy thoughts there, but basically our thoughts are that like Marineford is is where God Valley used to be, and there's all sorts of ties, and this could like go on absolutely hugely. It can go all over the place, but in answer to your question, I think Marineford is where God Valley was, and I've even started thinking about the fact that, like, the pillars on Marineford, they're sus. Everyone knows they're sus. Everyone's waiting for that sus to be revealed. But then I think, like, Wano, I think, well, there was a floating island there. There was Onigashima, right? That got moved, and then I think, okay, so maybe someone moved the original God Valley or something, but what we do believe is it's totally destroyed, and Marineford was built on top of it, essentially renaming it, which takes it off the maps per se. That's a quick version, I guess. Yeah. Also, like, there's tons of ties between the God Valley incident and Marineford, like the people that were there.
Yes.
Whitebeard, Kaido was supposed to be there. Shanks was there, who we know. Well, some people watching this might not know that Shanks has been shown to have been found at God Valley in a treasure chest by Roger on Roger's ship. So Blackbeard represents Zebek. All these ties to God Valley. So yeah. And
also in not chapter 0, or is it the New World chapter, whatever it is, Shiki showed up to Marineford, right? Like it was a separate ordeal, right? It was like, and they fought Garp and Sengoku. So it's like you mentioned, like Kaido was supposed to be there. Shiki showed up later on. It's there's a lot of interesting connections there.
Crazy. Yeah,
and
for sure.
I do have some more thoughts, but does anyone else have any thoughts on where God Valley was or is? Anyone else in the stream? I don't know if you guys have a video on it or not, or just thoughts to share, but
I mean, I could add to it.
That's fine too.
God Valley is like, oh wait, Elizabeth, are you going? Sorry.
Well, mine doesn't actually address his question. I just wanted to add to what Den was saying, so I can go after you.
No, go for it.
Oh, okay. So I watched that video. I watch a lot of One Piece theories, and there's times when I watch it and I just go, this makes so much sense, and it ties into other things I'm already thinking of that I had to add to in some way. So I reached out to Den and Cube and said, hey, I have so much more evidence that, weirdly enough, ties into the stuff I'm talking about. And one of the things is this idea of Morgans and what is so special about Morgans beyond just him being the DJ of the world news, as he likes to put it. And one of the things I think goes under the radar for Morgans is the fact that he is an albatross and commands seagulls. And that is so important because that is the animal that represents the Marines. So is it just a coincidence that he also just happens to be associated with the same animal that represents Marines, or is there something much deeper there? My video, which wasn't really comprehensive, it was more just like, here's a little bit of evidence to show why I think Morgans could secretly be a Gorosei member. And I showed that his news, WE News, is like Venus. And then I said his name, Big News, is like Venus. It's etymology. I break it down in my video and I show like why the B and the W can be a V. But this idea of God Valley also being attributed to Marines, I really believe there could be something there, especially when you take into account what Venus represents, and that is the morning star. Also the evening star, but it's more attributing the morning star to Venus. And why does the morning star matter? Well, that's because another name or entity tied to the morning star is Lucifer, the devil by many accounts, and the will of D, or more appropriately the enemies of the world government, are often attributed as devils. You know, you look at Robin, one of the greatest enemies of the world government, could literally turn into a devil. So this idea of God Valley also being tied to what could be Morning Star puts into question the what is a god and what is a devil, and could the two be the same? And I'll get into that more later when you ask me my question, but I think that's just something to think about, especially with the Morgan's thing. You know, regardless of whether or not he's a Gorosei member, I really do think there's something between him and the Marines.
For sure. One of the craziest things
Sora.
about that Morgan's video, and Paul, I'll let you talk about your idea in just a second. I won't take too long, but is it reminded me of kind of Karasu, where like, you know, Karasu has like, it's not a bird fruit, but he can like make a bunch of crows or whatever. So like maybe Morgan's is like the reverse of that for the world government. And like now maybe that, just like how the world government has given certain fruits to their Marines and stuff, right? Like they, you know, they seem to have, you know, fruits that they like to keep under their own control or whatever. Maybe that's one of them for the specific reason. Like maybe throughout the years they've been giving this fruit to a specific somebody, or it's been one person like you're bringing up. It could be a Gorosei member, because that's what I was thinking that too. Like if that fruit is what like lets them control seagulls, there has to be something. Like there's no way around it. Par, what were you gonna say about God Valley earlier?
I mean, it wasn't like anything too crazy. I like the idea that it's Marineford, but I also think like I think the main thing that I take away from God Valley was that, you know, it being erased from the maps is important, and I like the idea that it was like renamed rather than being completely erased. The only thing that's like a little interesting is like, you know, when we bring up the Whitebeard, Shikis, their involvement, Shank's involvement, all these characters who were there. I feel like it's interesting with like, you know, like I guess it'd be super ironic, I guess, because then when Sengoku's essentially telling everyone about rocks, he's doing it from like New Marineford, right? I think is when 957 is, and it's just kind of like, hey guys, we were on God Valley, and I don't know, it's just there's something there, but I think you know, God Valley, that panel that Kube and Den put up in that video at the very beginning is probably one of the coolest starts of a video. One, I just want to shout that out.
Flashback, you mean?
Yeah, because that is something that like I really love about theories or One Piece creators in general. Is like I've been told this of my channel several times. It's like, oh, I forgot about that detail, or I never noticed that kind of a thing. And what they pointed out was like in Mother Caramel's backstory, when they were executing the giants and Mother Caramel saved them for the first time, and I haven't seen another example of this honestly in all my time like looking at panels. Oda doesn't name the place that like we go to, so it's either a place that we already know, or it's a place that like he's actually trying to hide from us. Like he doesn't want us to know the true nature of it, right? And that's like, you know, if there's a few other places where it's like that sort of happens.
Add as well.
Yeah, what's up, Den?
That flashback took place 37 years before she was telling the story.
Right,
which is obviously the exact time frame that God Valley was before the present day as well.
Timeline wise, it's like it's crazy about like where that was, because it's one of those things where we have like in that flashback it's not just like one or two things. No, there's like multiple data points to exactly what Den said. Like we know exactly when it is. For some reason Oda just doesn't want to show us where it is. And like for me, where I go with that is and I talked to Threevil about this, was in Kuma's flashback. In Kuma's flashback, we get a situation where, yeah, it makes sense that we don't get the location, but Oda did show us landscapes from there. And I was just like, that's interesting. In a small sliver, he painted out this place. And yeah, he's not going to tell us where it is, but I almost think that wherever Kuma was God Valley, because it would make so much sense, because Kuma's childhood would be prior to God Valley as well. And then on top of that, God Valley was this place that, you know, from what we can figure out, is that there's celestial dragons there. There might be some slaves there, which in that case would be Kuma. But in Kuma's backstory, it was odd because we saw like the hair of celestial dragons, but it was a weird situation where Kuma escaped from them, and there was like non-slave people or people who would get like who were like Kuma's retainers there. So it wouldn't make sense necessarily for it to be on Meridjois, because that's where like the Celestials are, and it's like those like CP agents that follow around the Celestials, they don't really act like that when it comes to the slaves. I've at least we've never seen it like that. It almost seemed like those people were more in Kuma's shoes than not. And then at the same time, it wouldn't make sense if that was like Kuma's home, if he was like a king or anything, because then it's like what, the celestial dragons were holed up on Sorbet Kingdom and treating him like that. That's also very odd, right? So to me, I'm like, maybe that was a middle place like God Valley, where celestial dragons were there, citizens were there, people could escape, and it wasn't like all celestial dragon stuff. And then it would be a really cool the reason why I like that loop around is because if Kuma's backstory is what shows God Valley, then we might be getting some God Valley information, which connects to another theory. But you know, with Blackbeard and Pudding and Garp all in the same essential like arcs right now, it's like we could be getting like a taste of God Valley through those three, any part of those three, honestly. Garp being the last person who's relevant to the story that has actual memories of God Valley. And I would love that, because then it's like this constant drip from all the way from Whole Cake Island to the recent arcs to here. And then on top of that, the last loop around that makes that really good is if that's the case, and Garp is the hero of the Marines because of God Valley, then Kuma being somebody from God Valley who is kind of detained there would have been saved by Garp. And if you take that into account, then that would explain every part of Garp's character, why he teamed up with Dragon, Garp's son, why he also allowed himself to become a Navy weapon, is because he believed in Garp, right? Because Garp saved him. He saw the good in the Marines. And that would play really, really well into Kuma's backstory too. So that's kind of where I'm at with God Valley. And I you know, if it were Marineford, that's cool. I just think that it would be interesting if God Valley was like a location relevant to a future character like that.
I love that. So basically the place we saw in that brief Bonnie flashback could have been God Valley, basically.
Yep.
I love that. And also just building that with the Marineford idea is something the Den brought up in his video, was like the circle in Marineford, right? How there's like a port, like a weird perfectly circular port that like the shit, like the Moby Dick was able to like coat itself and go under and then come up. So it's obviously like really low, right? Like that's like there's a huge hole in the ground there. Otherwise, like the boat wouldn't have had room probably to do that.
Yeah.
And so it makes me think, just real quick, what if that was God Valley back then? It got emu blasted. That's why there's a perfect hole there, right? Like there's something in the ground, whatever, to build. Like they couldn't build there because like there's no ground. You know what I'm saying? Like it's like Enies Lobby, but not perfectly, because like obviously the water filled in, but like there's probably a hole way under there from like an emu blast. So maybe Marineford was built on top of an old emu blast, essentially, which was the God Valley. So it is God Valley, but then they just built that on top of it, and that's a pretty interesting tie to Enies Lobby, right? Who has a hole in the ground and also has a base built on it.
An interesting thing adding to what you're saying is the fact that Oda did state outright that it's completely made of bricks and steel. So, in other words, it's 100% synthetic, except for the corners, which means whatever was there natural is now gone.
Wow.
Now, you also bring up Enies Lobby, right? And Enies Lobby is the shape of Onigashima when Onigashima's being flown around. And Enies Lobby just so happens to be a judicial building and stuff. So it wouldn't surprise me if, if that Enies Lobby was at Marineford originally. And we hear that Big Mom gave Kaido a fruit. And so it could be possible that he used that fruit then to lift Enies Lobby and like hover it over the hole as like a threat or something like that. But that is
Right.
yeah, getting a bit reach and stretch. So
But no, that's crazy. Like that, like I can't believe I never thought about the fact that like Marineford has that hole there, like that. Like whenever you brought that up, and also I just want to tie this to something else. Is you know, obviously it was a whale coming up from under the water to start a big war and stuff, right? And like one, you know, my biggest theories are about, you know, a whale, you know, with holding Laugh Tale and, you know, Davy Jones and all that kind of stuff. So that was another thing where it's just like, man, like what if we get that like a reverse thing where, you know, once we go get the One Piece, they bring a whale up from, you know, underground basically, and it's like a similar thing, right? It's like just to show how important these like shapes are, like this kind of symbolism. By the way, Parvision's name is now Parlong. I don't know if anyone was looking at the chat. Parlong. I love
I've
that,
been
man.
looking at the chat, man. It is too damn funny. I've seen Parlong, Party Jones,
Oh no,
Parlong Park. Literally all
Nami
these.
better
other-
watch out, bro.
Yeah, too funny, man.
man, that's funny.
Going after Nami. But one thing I want to say about the Marineford thing. So I, you know, in a past video about the Amatsuki clan, specifically, a very lengthy explanation to get to the point where, you know, a cool detail is, yeah, Marineford is completely synthetic, right? It's built that way, and the thing is, like, who do we know are the best like stonemasons, the best architects in the One Piece world? It's Wano.
Right.
And so what's really interesting is that hole does seem random, but when you zoom out of Marineford, it's a giant crescent moon. That's what it was essentially built as. And so that giant crescent moon, it's like, hey, why aren't we tying it to Wano? You know, the same thing when I brought up with Impel Down, for example. It's like Impel Down, the way however it was built, which I proposed various ideas about on my channel, however it was built, it must have taken extremely talented craftsmen, also from Wano. We also know that within Impel Down, the jail cells are made out of sea stone. And who does the world government get their sea stone from? But then on top of that, how old is Impel Down? We know that at least 100 years ago, it was operational. Morley was already in there digging it up, and it's like, and so if it was already established 100 years ago, imagine how old Impel Down could be. I wouldn't be surprised if there is an entire Wano connection to the world government, and specifically when it comes to Marineford, the fact that it's built like a crescent moon is just like, yo, I mean, hey, like their entire thematic there, they have a castle on Marineford that is like just a modern version of Curry Castle, which is super interesting, right? Odin's castle, and then you put, you know, in the video I put them side by side. It's just a modern version of it on Marineford. And so, you know, the overall point being that since we know that the Amatsuki clan we don't know what region they were taking over, but Toki wasn't from Wano. She was teleported to some place that where she only heard of Wano from her parents, but didn't really know what it looked like, didn't know where it was. She was just blindly going, and her teleporting powers teleport her from where she was originally, and that definitely was not Wano. So then it's like, where was the Amatsuki clan if she teleported from the Void Century? So if she wasn't from Wano, that implies that the Amatsuki might have had a base of operations outside of Wano. And it, you know, given that their name is Heaven Moon Clan, and the Ten Yorobito are also the heavenly dragon folk, the heavens. It's not celestial. Celestial dragons, what we call it, but it's actually the heavenly dragon folk. So the heaven connection, it just kind of makes sense where, hey, if there's so many of these kings that left their nations to become celestial dragons, hey, what about Wano? Wano was definitely part of the Void Century, and you know, there's a lot more that I could say that the video does more justice than I could do right here. So
I could
add
to
disrupt
that.
your topics.
Well, real quick, just about the Amatsuki stuff. Do you think the bald Gorosei guy could be him? I saw a friend Harper mention it, and I think we talked about this before, Par. But like, do you think that could be Toki's dad, essentially?
So in the video, that's what I insinuate. Essentially, what you could do is, if you, in Higurashi's in the flashback, Higurashi showed us the daimyos of each region, and one of them was Amatsuki. What's interesting about that silhouette is it almost basically matches the silhouette that Oda drew as a personification of the Sandai Katetsu. The Katetsu being really important because a lot of people already figured that the Gorosei guy has the Shodai Katetsu, the first one. So if that Katetsu, Sandai Katetsu, was made with any connection to the Katetsu clan, then it could be that Shodai guy. Oh, so not backing up. Sorry. If it was made of the original Katetsu person, then what you could do is you could line up that personification, the Amatsuki silhouette, and you line it up with that guy from the Gorosei, and it basically looks the same. The nose shape, there's so many similarities, and I put that in that video, and so I could easily see that guy being Amatsuki. And what's really interesting is in the video, I think I like scuffed up the details, but it ended up being correct anyways, which is hilarious. I was saying that the Amatsuki clan could have used a pseudonym, which was the Katetsu, which later on we got to confirm that the Kozuki Hitetsu was using, that was a pseudonym for Sukiyaki. So if the Kozuki's pseudonym is Kotetsu, then and they chose the name Hitetsu and Kotetsu, then I don't see why the Amatsuki couldn't do Kitetsu. So that Gorosei guy definitely had probably. I'm buying that he has the Shodai Katetsu. It wouldn't make sense otherwise. And then he's Amatsuki, the celestial dragon that left from Wano. That's the way I see it.
And if I remember right, isn't like the sheath for his sword like made of wood? Like, doesn't it look like it's old? I'm pretty sure. I know I've heard that in the theory before. I guess I haven't looked myself, but it gives this like it would make sense that sword is that old. I guess what I'm saying. Like if the family names go back that far and it's like the first one, like I can definitely see that.
In that video, I put I'm pretty sure I used the original like tweet or Reddit post that the person who connected like how the swords from Kitetsu and the Sandai, Nidai, and Shodai all share a similar visual thematic, and so someone like drew all the parallels. So I put it in that video too. Shout out to that guy because that was I'm pretty sure that was like long time ago. But
damn.
Yeah.
No, I love that. Elids, did you have some thoughts earlier? I thought maybe I can't remember.
Yeah, when you brought up the Wano connection to Marineford, I mean, just off a shallow thing is that they have Japanese pagodas at Marineford, which is really odd because despite the fact that One Piece being a Japanese story, I feel like Oda really goes out of his way to use other cultures to represent other places and primarily focus Japanese aesthetics in Wano. And like even when it's not, like Zoro's from the East Blue, but his family's actually has ties to Wano. So there's usually a reason why these things that have Japanese aesthetic are that way in the world of One Piece. So I definitely think it's very telling that Marineford is the way it is. And then I don't want to give too much away, but I actually was so inspired by Denden's video and Coop. I told them I actually wanted to put together a follow-up theory to that very idea of Marineford being God Valley. And just at the basic level, the video is going to be about the idea that maybe God Valley could have been the One Piece equivalent of the Garden of Eden. And one of the things about God Valley, or people tied to God Valley, is that there's this gifting of devil fruits, and not just any devil fruits, mythical devil fruits. We have Higurashi Kurozumi, who speculate to have some ties to God Valley, especially since she sought out Kaido. She looked like Shiki and Stussy, and she gave Orochi his devil fruit. Apparently that's where Big Mom gave Kaido his devil fruit. And the Wano connection, one, those two devil fruits just so happen to end up in Wano through their users. And two, there's a lot of idea of food being given to royals. There's a heavy emphasis of food and farming of the lower class to the higher class. And in the God Valley video that Denden made, he's pointed out the slave triangle, which I think has huge implications. This idea that the Marineford, Enies Lobby, and Impelled Down are related to the slaves. So it's crazy, but the connections I make are super solid. It somehow ties the slave triangle to the Garden of Eden to Wano. Wano plays a huge part, so definitely be on the lookout for that. And I fully on board with Wano, have heavy ties to Marineford slash God Valley.
And building off that Garden of Eden idea, we're gonna talk about your thoughts on Emu in just a second, because I think that's you know, I'm just gonna let you cook here in a minute, because I think that's gonna be like the tie. Like once people hear, if they haven't heard it yet, your thoughts on Emu and everything, and then now you're bringing up the Garden of Eden stuff. Like man, that goes deep. So first I'm gonna get into some super chats, and then I'm gonna let you cook on Emu for a little bit. Mr. Bushido super chatted €5 and said Stussy was the first successful clone. Who are the others? Who are the other failed ones? My bet is Killer, Ashiki, Bonnie, Big Mom, Blackbeard's Rocks. How do they get world peace? So what do you, just real quick, what do you guys think about the other clones? Like, are you guys into clone peace, or what do you?
I mean, I made a video about the Shiki Killer connection, but since then I talked about it in the Discord a little bit, but it doesn't need to be like, you know, when I think what was cool is if that's the case, that Killer and Shiki is clones of each other, and to, if people haven't watched the short, essentially it's like, why are we hiding Killer's face, especially if we're just gonna throw him out the way we did recently? Obviously I made this video before all that, but you know, with what little bits Oda did give us, there's a lot of similarities. The same goatee, same hair, same lips, and those are the main things that we got from Killer. Despite when he was maskless, Oda still hid his face. He only gave us his lips and his goatee, and you put it right next to Shiki and it looks exactly like that. But I think what was really interesting was with the clone piece thing, if you didn't follow that line of logic, I feel like you were missing out on this really cool idea where it's like, maybe it doesn't even need to be a clone. It could just straight up be like like Shiki could be, I mean, Killer could be Shiki's kid through some like crazy connection, and I wouldn't be like as opposed to the idea, because if we're seeing like Roger, their pirate crew, and all of the outposts of them, and we look at the Rocks pirates, look at the Rocks pirates. The Rocks, Big Mom has kids, Kaido has kids, Whitebeard didn't, well, Weevil's a question mark, but like,
I mean, he had all sorts of other kids, right? Like adopted kids,
right? So then it's like, why not Shiki? Why not Captain John? Why not the other ones? When we see Wang Ji, I'll be interested to find out if Oda created another plot line for him too. So you know, in terms of that, I think my current favorite one outside of all of the more popular ones is that Dufeld, or Crocodile, is a clone of Dufeld, because for me, if Mad's entire, like their entire point of existence was cloning, right? Because that's what they said when Stussy was this is like the greatest thing that we could do, blah blah blah, and she's the current, or the first successful clone. Yeah, there has to be a bunch of failed ones, and Crocodile, like Weevil, has a random stitch across like a major body part. His failure could be that he was born a female, so then it's like, that's an interesting thing. That's something that like Vegapunk would say out of pocketly. But the other part is like, hey, when somebody funds like a science project, when an investor signs on to something, they usually don't do it for the greater good of humanity. They're trying to get something out of it. So what did Dufeld get out of it, right? It would make sense if he was funding a cloning project if he got a clone. And the person who looks most like Dufeld is Crocodile. And Crocodile, Dufeld is known as the loan shark of the world, and that's what's funny about Crocodile. When he got reintroduced to the Cross Guild, he was a loan shark. He loaned Buggy all the money, and then he also was shaking him down for the money. So it's like there's so, and then we have to wonder how he has all this information. If he was tied to Mads in some way, it just makes sense why he's like, oh, Pluton, oh, like I know everything about the world government, right? Like it would make sense how he escapes Impel Down, and then he's just chilling, and then every time we see him, he's like a baller, right? If he's a part of that family, makes a lot of sense.
And it would make a lot of sense, I think, for like Dufeld, like he's doing, like you said, like he's not doing this for the greater good. He wants something out of it. And what if he was trying to make like, you know, like a clone army of himself, or you know, just whatever, like kind of like these seraphims are to the government. Like he wanted people, you know, it's either to, I don't know if it's to carry on his will, to help him do his plans, whatever it is. And it just all of it makes a lot of sense that he would want a clone, or like an improved version of himself, even, right? Like he probably doesn't want a clone, I would imagine, right? Because like, he's not like strong. At least we don't think he's strong, right? Like you would want like a stronger version of himself, kind of. So I can just see it. I can definitely see it.
I mean, like what Stussy is to Bawkins, right? Like,
yeah.
I mean, Bawkins could have been, you know, strong too, but like clearly she isn't now.
Exactly.
And so Stussy's crazy, right?
That's exactly it. And then Mr. Bushido also super chatted €2 and brought up the fact that Shiki moved God Valley with his devil fruit. And I know we just talked about Shiki and Killer a lot, and I think that's interesting because you know, Kaido, who obviously knows a lot about God Valley and stuff, moved Onigashima, right? And Shiki's powers work a lot like that. Like obviously they're not flame clouds, but they can move things in the air and stuff, right? Not living things though, right? Whatever it is, but I you know, I don't know if he would have moved God Valley exactly, but it is interesting because Marco also said, oh, that's what they call that, Onigashima now, right? And so there's like, it gives me vibes of like, okay, Kaido moved an island that Marco is like, oh, that's like from somewhere else. And so now I do think it's interesting that Shiki could be involved somehow. And then
I have to
go ahead.
add to that, but I also know that Par has to leave soon. So did you want me to just summarize the emu thing?
Yeah,
just real quick. I can go fast.
Well, yeah, I was trying to fly through the chats real quick, and then that's exactly what I was doing. I was just trying to fly through real quick. It's just because otherwise, because this is going to be a long discussion, the emu stuff. So just real quick, I'll just fly. There's only two more. Mr. Bushido, €2 super chat. Toki was from Wano, but Wano was moved since then. That it would be kind of interesting if like she teleported and like Wano like, you know, like was moved and then so she wasn't there anymore. But based off what we saw with the walls, the pole shift theory, I don't know if everyone saw that. I feel like I need to watch it a couple more times, but that was a crazy theory. But
I didn't watch it yet.
And then just last thing, Saran Wraps used some bits and said what the 5 Gorosei are like the Zero Division squad from Bleach. I have never seen Bleach, so I don't know if anyone has like a quick thought on that, but I have no idea.
It's something that I definitely, it starts firing triggers off in my brain, but I need to cook that.
Yeah.
Whoever said it,
Saran Wrap.
look at Cypherpole when they were kids and see how that connects to the Bleach stuff. But anyway,
I like that. All right, so next thing, you know, we've been teasing it. Elids, I want you to go off about Emu, man. Who is Emu? Or who was Emu? But obviously they're still, you know, they may have been around a long time. Who is or was Emu?
Okay, so I can't just flat out say who I think, even though I have a pretty good idea because I haven't really even gotten to that in my video yet. But essentially, I could say who I think Emu represents and what from the story we can draw to say like that is good evidence as to why that is Emu. So pretty much, Kuma has a Bible. And on the cover of the Bible is this mysterious woman. Is the woman fictional? Is the woman real? What does the woman represent? Well, basically, my theory is that it represents Emu. So, I have other theories prior that establish why I think Joy Boy is the One Piece equivalent of Jesus. And essentially, I think in One Piece, one of the things Oda does to craft his character is whenever there's a character that has an animal tied to it, like owns an animal, that when he makes his version in his story, he kind of combines the two. So for example, the Going Merry, right? I think it's pretty evident that inspiration that went into the Going Merry is Mary had a little lamb. But Mary was a girl and she had the lamb. Well, in that case, Mary is the lamb. So it's basically combining it one. I think that Joy Boy was a sheep mink. And I show a cover page from chapter 175 titled Release. But the Japanese word for it is Kaiho. And Kaiho translates to English as liberation. Release as well, but I think the liberation is more relevant. So that's just like a bare bones reasons why I think Joy Boy or the Warrior Liberation was a sheep mink and represents Jesus, the Good Shepherd. So then, the woman on the cover of a Bible, what sense would it be to have put a woman on the cover of a Bible if there is already a Jesus equivalent in the world of One Piece? Well, in some sects of Christianity, they do worship Mary. It's called Marian devotion. So, one clear evidence as to how Emu could actually be Mary is the fact that the place that they live is literally called Mary Joie. Then you can break that down. It's Mary Geo. Geo means earth, so it's basically Mary's earth, Mary's land. So that's just the bare bones evidence towards the idea that Emu could represent who is on the cover of the Bible. So then it gets a lot more deeper once you start speculating how this ties to Joy Boy and what could that mean, the relationship between Joy Boy and Emu. Is Emu Joy Boy's mother? I'm not going to outright say that, but what I will say is that I do believe she represents mother, divine feminine. I'm not going to explain what divine feminine is, but basically this idea of what a mother represents in the grand theme of the story. Oda even answered this in a SBS. Someone asked, how come we don't see a lot of mothers in the story? And he said mothers are like the antithesis of adventure. It's almost like the mother is gonna coddle you. The mother's not gonna want you to go out, wants you to stay in. And that's basically is the opposite of what One Piece. The whole idea of One Piece is you don't stay home, you go out and adventure. Luffy wanted to leave. That's what he wanted to do at the very beginning. He wanted to go with Shanks, but then he ended up doing it on his own. You look at a lot of the struggles of getting the Straw Hats onto Luffy's ship is this idea that they didn't want to leave. Sanji didn't want to leave. Nami actually went back home. Frankie didn't want to leave. So many people just didn't want to leave their place. And even though a mother wasn't technically present in that moment, it's the idea of what a mother represents. So that's something I just wanted to give a bare bones explanation, just because I think that's easier for people to build off, as well as the fact that I don't have it all together. Because I would love to see other people build off this idea of Emu just really representing a mother and look into what divine feminine represents and all that and stuff, why that could also be the case.
And whenever you were saying, like Joy Boy is basically like a representation of Jesus essentially, and I know you didn't say this is exactly it, but Emu could be a motherly figure, which like Mary, is the mother of Jesus, right? That to me, like, I can't believe I never made that connection, but you're spot on. And I also want to connect one thing to something Par has said before. I know we're just hitting 3 Par, but you said Mary Geo, like Mary Joie, right? So you have Mary and then Geo, and then that connects to Par's theory on Emu, or maybe one of them, at least an aspect of it. So Par, I don't know if you want to respond or anything. I don't know if you're still there, but
What's up? I got my camera fixed in the 11th hour, so
it had to bust it out for the Emu talk.
yeah.
Harlem
Can't have
means
Parlong be talking about Emu that despite what Emu might look like, and so it's funny because if anyone has watched Blumph God's Cross Guild Connection 2, where I was, Elids, Dax, we were all there. I was about to post a video, and then Elids came with a lot more of this theory too there, and it was really, really cool because it was like, on my channel with the concept of mind rope, like Elids and I, when he introduced himself, he was talking about how he used to do devil fruit stuff and power stuff, and even that we've talked about that in the past, how like similar our ideas are, and that's really cool. And I think that applies here because in my EAM video that Dax is referencing, what I say is there's 2 main thoughts, right? The mother aspect, right? Like, I think a lot of people, especially now we have Mother Nature and like the mother, we always say like Mother Earth. Earth is like, has that female tie to it. Gaia, for example, in Roman, Greek mythology, whichever name you want to, or mythology you want to use, Gaia, Terra, whatever it is. It's always a feminine figure, right? And the thing with Emu is that I'm trying to see which direction I want to go to first. Dax probably understands why I'm like, huh, which way?
There's
But
a million ways, a million things you could bring
yeah,
up.
there's a million ways. So essentially where I go with that is if Mother Earth was personified, right? And had a being. Well, we kind of have like various objects within One Piece that get personified, right? Like the swords, Enma. Enma was a sword that had a strong enough will that could kill Zoro, right? Talked about that. And then there's an interesting one. We have the Going Mary, right? Mary Joie, Mary Go, Mary Joey, whichever version of the translation you want to go with. Essentially, it's like it's an interesting connection. But when the Going Mary was also personified and was like one of the most emotional scenes of pre-time skip, where we were crying over a ship. And the thing about it is, you know, prior to our generation, more closely to Oda's generation, there was a giant way there was something that all of the Earth essentially romanticized, and that was the space race. The space race was essentially romanticized between the countries, and one of the major things that was said at the UN and was taken from fiction was the concept that our Earth is a spaceship. It's called Spaceship Earth. So you can look it up. I put the actually I always, whenever I bring it up, because I like bringing up the quote that was said, because I feel like that quote is so powerful. And when I read it, you get the people are like, oh yeah, sure, Oda connected to this thing, right? That was before he was born. And I think like a lot, especially for a lot of young people, it gets lost upon us how different the world was before the internet, before TVs were popularized. Like when it came to a lot of these things, anything that showed up on the TV became like broadcast across the world in such a grand way, where it's like even my family from Bangladesh, they knew about these things that the US were doing in the 60s, 70s, whatever. And so this is the UN speech that Adlai Stevenson, 1965 at the UN. He said, "We travel together, passengers on a little spaceship, dependent on its vulnerable reserves of air and soil, all committed for our safety, to its security and peace, preserved by annihilation only by the care, the work, and I will say the love we give our fragile craft. We cannot maintain it half fortunate, half miserable, half confident, half despairing, half slave to the ancient enemies of man, half free in a liberation of resources undreamed of until this day. No craft, no crew can travel safely with such vast contradictions. On their resolution depends the survival of us all." So essentially, like, the Earth will never be saved until there is the right crew that is able to overcome the negative aspects of our planet. And there's so many ways that you could break it down, and I break it down in the video. But what's mainly important about that is saying that this Earth is a ship. The Earth is a ship because if in the One Piece world, ships have Clobotermans, and Clobotermans are spirits of something that was loved, heavily loved, and it can manifest itself in a spirit that can essentially repair itself. The Going Merry sent itself to its original state. Usopp put it into a bird mode, right? That allowed it to go to Skypiea, but it was like this unnatural place. It shouldn't have been there. And then the Going Merry, when it went to fix itself, it brought it back to its original state. The point where Usopp was like, how is that possible? And what's really cool about that is, hey, if we're wondering how the ancient kingdom was wiped out and how there's no remnants of it besides the poneglyphs, hey, if the Earth's Cloboterman was the one who was able to do that, then that makes so many things make sense. Because if on top of that, the Going Merry was able to sail itself to Enies Lobby, the Going Merry was able to do basically be autonomous, choose its own orbit, for example, right? If you were to tie that to the spaceship Earth idea, Eam would essentially, if it was the Cloboterman of the Earth, it would make so much sense, because then the Void Century could have been a conflict over the Earth. And the most important thing about the Cloboterman stuff is that the Clobotomans show up when the ship is doomed in order to save the craft. So the idea that the throne is empty could be all true, and Eem only shows up when the Earth is doomed. And there's so many other contexts that I talk about in the video, but the one I want to focus on here is the idea that if Eem were the spirit of the Earth, there's been the Japanese theory that's been viral recently about the pole shifting. Hey, that gives you full right of being able to spin the Earth in different direction. I know Dax has a various theory about that. So many ideas about how Eem has powers over water. Boom. If you are the Clobotoman of the Earth, then you got that, right? You are essentially Mother Nature. You're the spirit of it. And everything, the mother aspect is like everything underneath the Earth's domain is born out of the Earth's goodwill. And what's, I think, something that I talk about, at least from a narrative aspect, is that if you're wondering, like, hey, like, well, most of the places have like sun gods and things like that. They don't really have that. What's most interesting is Skypiea. Skypiea worshipped Verth, right? And they even have a statue that looks like what it was supposed to be. And what's funny is Luffy goes to say, it's like, is that some pagan idol? Which pagan is like, pagan idol refers to a minority belief system, which is ironic because if Eem is that person and calling it a pagan idol is just like kind of the funniest thing a sun god could say, right? Because now you can recontextualize that. That's Luffy as sun god calling the earth god a pagan idol, whereas they should be believing in the sun, but believing in that is just a weird thing. And I think that's what Luffy essentially said. And so, I think when it comes to why I love that theory, that connects Elid's idea as well, because it goes back to the Going Merry aspect, which is that the Going Merry was the most emotional thing over a goddamn ship. Like, it was literally over a ship, right? And even in our world, we do not care about the Earth. Like, I don't care if you think you care. Like, most people don't. Like, to the point where you're crying over it like that, right? And the thing is, it's like, if by the end of the story that Oda wants to paint is that Emu has this tragic, background, and it's similar to the Going Marys, we're gonna be crying, and it's gonna be a sad one. And I think it would make sense because, well, the Going Mary, the shape of it is like the moon kind of idea. And I'm getting a little jumbled here. The video puts more in context, but the Going Merry is like this moon-shaped thing, and then the Thousand Sunny is the sun, right? And it's kind of like this transition that Luffy had to make to jump ships from the Going Merry to figure out, like, hey, this is obsolete. We have to make the decision to go here, but that's a tough decision, right? And that could be one and the same of what the Going Merry, or not the Going Merry, Merry Draw, Eem. It could be that they never made the jump to the next step, which would play in a line of the geocentric to heliocentric jump, or just space piece in general, right? Like, we see that there's space pirates that are mining the moon. It's like, I wonder what would have happened if all the pirates went to space back in the Void Century, right? Well, I wonder what stopped them. Was Eem stopping them from doing that to keep everyone on Earth? And one way or another, I see this theory panning out because there's incredible theorists like Elids and so many others that have different aspect of this thing that'll all just be explained if, Eem is the embodiment of the Earth, so much so that it's the Clobotoman of the Earth. And so I was dragging on a bit, but that's what it was.
No, I love that.
Can I just jump on that quickly for like 2 minutes before
Go
I have
for
to
it.
shoot for five minutes?
Go for it.
I was just going to say real quickly, so to summarize what I was going to say, to be quick, with Elid's point, right, you've got, as most One Piece readers will know and watchers, right, you've got Marie Joie, and then you've got Joy Boy. So Marie Joie, you can get Mary's Joy. Joy Boy is, the boy of the joy. So yeah, I totally agree with this like lineup that like Emu's a mother figure. And when you think about Spirited Away, a movie most of us have probably seen, you've got the old witch who keeps the baby in the palace, right? And that's the idea. Like, I think it was to bind the child figure to Marijois. You've got everything you need here at the top of this rock. Don't leave and see the world. And then Joy Boy sets off, which, as we know, is Luffy. He eats the fruit before he leaves. And then we have, as Pa was going on then, we have the Going Merry, which is the mother, the Going Mother, the thing that carries Luffy. And then what's on the front of that? A lamb. And then the Going Merry burns. And then you've got the Thousand Sunny, which has a lion. So you've got a lamb to lion situation. You've got the death of child, rebirth of the adult, like hero's journey stuff. Sorry if that's a bit too deep, but yeah.
Well, then I mean, and Luffy died and then became the sun god, so there's like another transition, right, from one form to another.
Night died.
Man, so many good points. I want to say a couple things, and then I'm gonna alley-oop it over back to Elids. First thing, all of you guys need to go subscribe to all these guys in here. You know, Den and Elids are both really close to getting monetized, and obviously I think both these guys need to go get monetized. Elids is like 20 something subscribers away, and Den's only like a couple hundred, so everyone needs to go check them out. And then also, Par, you were talking a lot about the Klabautermann stuff, right? And I think, and you lightly mentioned it, but the pagan idol thing, in that same area of the story, I think I sent you the panel, we see Gon Fall like holding like some dirt, and he's like, Verth is admiration itself, right? Yep. And so what is a Klabautermann? You have to admire your ship, right? You have to love your ship, or else it's not going to create that thing anyway, right? And so that's the thing where like Verth is admiration itself. It's like maybe people a long time ago learned how important this earth is, like you gave that UN speech. It's like, I think sometimes, like, I think there are a lot of people even today probably don't appreciate the earth as much as we should, right? And it goes to show maybe that's like how it was. Like there's a group back then that recognized like, hey, we need to take care of the planet, right? And then that's how it all started, right? And it's interesting because Skypiea is also where we first saw the Klabautermann, and that Klabautermann first spawned when it was on the sacrificial altar where we were like, going to meet the sun god, right, back in the Nolan's flashback. So all that stuff is like really crazy. And then the alley-oop back over to Elids.
Just real quick, because I want to alley-oop to Elids too, because this is probably the last thing I'll say, but then I'll have to hop up. But I'll be tuning in, guys. So if you guys are in the chat, definitely like the stream also.
Appreciate you
and support and yeah. I love one. I just, before I give the alley-oop, just appreciate Dax doing this. I mentioned before a long time ago that I've wanted to do creator group streams like this, because that's the whole point of One Piece, is like getting conversations in, and everyone in the chat's contributing, everyone here is contributing, and unfortunately I had a child. Unfortunately, it means I have less time. So Dax is carrying on the torch and that dream of mine. So I appreciate that. And so one, the alley-oop is essentially that, like, the entire point of that speech that the UN person gave was kind of like the idea, as ironic as the space race was, right? Because it was the US versus Russia, primarily, and though there were other attempts by other nations that weren't exactly humane or useful in some contexts. But the point being is that the speech was trying to tell people that in order for humanity to level up, in order for humanity to go to the next level, to the next horizon, we had to work together. Everybody had to act like one unit, one crew, one piece. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's the same kind of messaging that Oda wants to bring about this, right? Like, like a small tangent is like when it came to like Lucci's introduction back into Egghead, something that I was saying like I think it was chapter 1067, was like, how crazy would it be if Lucci allied with Luffy, do some crazy happenstance reason, right? Right now we got a temporary one, but like by the end of it's like, hey, what if he's on the thing? And a lot of people are like, yeah, he's a cold-blooded killer, blah blah blah, Luffy would never accept him. And the thing about it, it's like this, especially in a fictional world, Luffy is the kind of person that looks past it. He looks at someone's future and present state more so than their past. And I'm not saying that that's what we have to apply to the real world, right? Because people do crazy shit that we can't accept. But like at the same time, it's like in order for us to move forward, we kind of have to like look at everybody as humans and create one singular crew that is at least cohesive. It doesn't necessarily need to be, you know, what the world government is trying to do by having everyone underneath one umbrella, but more so like what Luffy's doing, where it's like we respect, like the Grand Fleet. That panel is so powerful to me because they were like, yo, we want to be under you because we respect you, and whatever you do we support, right? And I don't know if the world will ever come to that, but like I feel like that's where Oda wants to take us to. And so that's also, you know, when it comes to like all the connections that Elids makes, that's kind of the thing that is the behind all of these stories, whether it's the Bible, whether it's the Quran, whether it's Torah. It's like that is kind of what we lean back on, the idea that, like, you know, that everyone should be friends, everyone should love each other, right? So
I love
with
it.
that, you pass it on to Elids and you guys. So thank you guys for these conversations. We'll be listening. Thank you guys for the chat.
Hey,
Peace, Pa. Peace.
yeah, thanks for coming
Peace
in,
out.
Par. I know you're busy, so I appreciate it.
Yep. Much love.
Thank you, and add me on Discord, because actually, I
Will
don't.
do.
This theory as all these different thoughts I had. Like, I have so many different thoughts, but I'm mindful of your time. But I do want to talk to you because I don't even know how much of this theory I actually want to publish, just because there's so many different things I want to work on, and I had to do a little soul searching. And I actually want to get back to more of the hockey stuff. I want to do more allegorical stuff. Even though I have like tons of evidence for where I think the story is going, I don't actually want to do that as much anymore. And I plan to make a video on that on my channel. But so I have all these ideas, and I actually want to share them. I want to work with Dak. I want to work with Denden. I'm already working with Denden. I want to work with Prince. I want to work with everybody because I have these ideas, but I don't actually want to make them myself. So I'm just so open to working with anybody. For, you know, you don't have to ask anything. I'm not asking anything from anybody. I just want to work with people because I have these ideas. I just want to share them with everybody.
All right.
And, yeah, so
before you
please
go
add me.
on, I will add you, but you know, he doesn't want to ask anything of anybody. But I am asking my viewers to go sub, because what he just said is like, it's kind of crazy. Because if it weren't the ideas behind our theories are very similar and we speak about them in different ways, I'm doing the exact same thing right now. Like, I literally am working on my hockey and devil fruit videos again, which I did at the very beginning of my channel, which is what you did too. So like, even that, we're on the same boat. I just love that. I love that. So my viewers, if you guys aren't already, go subscribe to Elids. That's my ask. And obviously Dax and Denden and Prince of all anime. Love you guys. I'm gonna head out. Thank you.
Thank you, Par. Appreciate you.
Peace, Par.
And then Elids, I want to alley-oop something to you real quick. Oh, hold on. I hear some feedback. Does anyone else hear that, or is it just me?
I do as well.
I think is that you?
Oh, there we go. Okay, we're good. Okay, Elids, just real quick. So, you know, Par with the Klabautermon stuff, he mentioned basically like Klabautermons are fairies, right? Basically, right? Something like that. And in your video, you brought up the fairy connection with like the nymphs, right? With Lily and Nymphea and all that stuff. So I guess I wanna get your thoughts on that, like the Klabautermon stuff. I feel like your theories could both be correct because they tie together so well. So do you think like that nymph stuff, like the fairy aspect, could be, you know, it's a Klabautermon essentially?
Absolutely, 1000%. There's so many places I'm gonna go with this, but I'm trying to kind of keep it concise. Let's start with Usopp, the very person who saw the Klabauterman, and it was really, Frankie said it was him. It was really Usopp that even caused the Klabauterman to appear. More than anybody, more than even the captain, it was Usopp. So what is special about Usopp? Is it just his love for the Mary, or maybe there's something special about him? His physiology, his spirit. And I think it actually has to do with some of the missing races of One Piece. I believe that there are missing races. In the video, I talked about amphibians, and I think that there's going to be like frog people, which is cool because the very most recent chapter, what did we see Shanks had on his crew? He had like a frog guy.
Yep.
And the very cover page had a frog in it, which was Oda's choice. Because if you read the description of the request, it just says Luffy watering a flower that he mistakes for a lion. It says nothing about a frog, and for some reason Oda decided to put a frog on that. I truly believe there's missing races.
You need to, dude. You need to
Um,
check out Vivi, all of Vivi's cover stories, because like that's all about
oh yeah.
amphibious, land and sea, and there's frogs in them. You know.
Mm-hmm. No, I saw
Represent-
your video, and
Oh.
that's why I was interested what you thought of my Mary Joie video, because if you think about it, I actually didn't go into it in the video because I cut out so many stuff. But one of the things Mary means is actually sea, which then ties to the whole emu umi thing. So Mary means sea. So then when you put Mary Geo, it's basically saying sea and land,
Wow.
which you touched
That's
upon in your
crazy.
video.
That's crazy. That's
Yep.
that's
So-
a spicy meatball, bro. That's crazy.
Oh yeah, it's so deep. I actually had to take a break. I literally had to take a break from One Piece because I was finding too many connections. I was going crazy. I was like,
Bro.
hey, good God, thank God I don't have a board with like strings and thumbtacks and all that stuff.
The
Like,
the always sunny meme.
I was going wild.
Pepe
Yeah,
Sylvia. Pepe Sylvia.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
man.
but-
What man? Any other thoughts on emu real quick? Just because we can keep talking about it, but I have some more stuff to say. But any other thoughts before I go about this whole
I had a
situation?
different theory
Really
about
in
emu,
BB.
but it's like it's
Yes, the Seven
not more
Prince.
so connected to what you call it. It is actually connected to like a mother per se. It was this whole Greek myth about Cassiopeia,
Mm.
and if y'all in the chat don't know who Cassiopeia is, definitely a minor figure in Greek mythology, but apparently she was a queen who was very vain and was hella about beauty and stuff, and bragged about her and her daughter having like very beautiful figures and stuff like that, and boasts about themselves way too much. And then by doing so, she angered Poseidon, and in the case of that, she ended up having some kind of right or some kind of passage. I'm forgetting the whole myth, but it ended up being that she got a punishment where she had to like look in a mirror or something, and that it was basically that she had to be seated in a chair of punishment for the rest of eternity. That was her punishment. So I'm thinking of the whole throne that Emu is always constantly sitting at, and then the garden and stuff with the flowers that she's always with, and also the constellation like Cassiopeia is also mirrored based on this Greek mythology. And
Wow.
there's 5 specific stars, which also can be tied to the 5 elder stars. And then the theory kind of goes back to how the perpetual youth surgery, for example, with Dofi, him wanting the perpetual youth surgery. So there's like a whole deep, like intertwined connection to Emu wanting like eternal beauty in a sense, so that she can live on forever.
What that and that's crazy because I just looked up some stuff about Cassiopeia, if I'm saying that right, and just one of the small things. There's many layers to it, but it mentions that Cassiopeia like was made into a constellation, which like that's like I guess because like it is a constellation. I guess like the myth of why I don't know, whatever, but also that she said that she was the reason why that happened or something was because she said she was more beautiful than all of the sea nymphs. And I literally was just talking to Elitz about nymphs and fairies, and like Klabautermon are basically that, right? And for what it's worth, also the Tentata are considered fairies or nymphs, essentially, right? And their history goes all the way back to 900 years ago with a different celestial dragon family, the Don Quixotes, right? Like 900 years ago. And so it's crazy. Like, so the nymphs of like the ones that we're familiar with, the fairies of the One Piece world, were enslaved, and then somehow that family that enslaved them leveraged that to become a celestial dragon family and create the world government. So it's like, so obviously nymphs are important in some way, right? Like fairies. So a lot of connections there. Elids, you got something to
So in that video that will be on Denden's channel, the last arc, people definitely should check that out. That is going to be the follow-up to the God Valley, the Garnier. I do talk about nymphs a lot in that video. And you mentioned sea nymphs. Well, sea nymphs are actually just another name for mermaids. And I believe going to play a huge role when you factor in Poseidon and all that stuff.
Talk
but
about that
you also
too.
mentioned, yes, you mentioned becoming a star. And what we're seeing now in Egghead with Vegapunk and his satellites. Well, satellite means, something that's far off from the home base planet, the focal point of the Earth. So a moon is a satellite, but even a rock just floating around the earthly satellite. The planets are not satellites, but in a geocentric model, they are
Right.
satellites.
Yep.
So then it makes you wonder, what does this mean for Emu and the Gorosei? If Emu represents Earth and is geocentric, then wouldn't they be satellites, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the way Vegapunk treats his satellites it's interesting because he kind of treats them as his equal, but at the same time he would be their creator, right? So he would be a father of them, but he doesn't really treat them that way. And I think with Emu being motherly, if she were to be above her satellites, it's almost like they're her children. And in Japanese, they have a term for children who don't leave the home, and basically they're called parasites. This idea that they're actually just feeding off of the mother that coddles them and doesn't want them to leave. So perhaps they're not just satellites, it goes even further, they're parasites. And the Gorosei might even get power siphoned from Emu. I wouldn't be surprised if we find out that Emu herself doesn't even hold the power. She herself isn't even the one that is technically the powerful one. It is actually her parasites that she tells them what to do. I know there's the scene where there's the X drawn on and then stuff rains down on Lelouch, but we don't know if that was actually Emu. Technically, we don't know who did that. We're led to assume it is, but this idea that perhaps Emu is not even that powerful would actually be so befitting, because in our mind, shonen protagonists are supposed to beat up the final villain, the big bad. And how subversive would it be if Emu's not even that powerful? It would be like such a it'd be such a letdown. It'd be so like against this idea of our boy-filled fantasies of yes, you beat up the bad guy, and then to find out that it's not even that powerful. You can't just beat him up or beat Emu up to win. There's something more to it.
I
was just gonna say.
Oh, just real quick, I would love it if Emu, like, you kill me and the world ends or something like that, right? So it's like they're weak, but it's like you can't kill me or you're dead too, right? Anyways, Prince, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say I actually love that idea because of the fact that it kind of teaches Luffy that you can't just punch your way through every single problem. So it's a really cool idea to understand. Definitely love that.
Oh, dude,
and I do also think that Emu can't be that powerful because she has the Gorosei, world government, everybody protecting her identity. She can't even be known to the whole world. So there's probably a reason for that. Also, with the whole Lelouch thing, I definitely think it's not Uranus, but it's just some kind of huge, powerful artifact specifically related to the map itself that she's drawing the X on.
Well,
I don't think it's Emu specifically.
And we're going to talk more about that in a second, and Emu's assistant and stuff, because I know there's a super chat from Bushido about that. But real quick, I just want to get to a couple other super chats, and then we'll circle right back to that point. That One Piece talk super chatted $10. Everyone, if you haven't checked out that One Piece talk yet, you definitely need to. I heard Parvision was going to do his best impersonation of a whale mating call. Also, much love to everyone and Dak himself from the TOPT boys. Hey, much love, and you just missed it. Parlong was here earlier. He had to go about like 15 minutes ago probably, but we had Parlong for a good hour in the stream. He was little shark mode, but thank you so much for the super. And also, is this Larry or Seb or who is this? Because if it's Seb, hey man, we got a Cavs Knicks series coming up, like almost guaranteed. It's pretty much locked in, man. So we're gonna have to talk about that. But I really appreciate the super chat. And then Mr. Bushido super chatted €2 and said, "Been thinking of starting my own YouTube. Might be a while." Hey, Mr. Bushido, I'll be your first sub, man, if I can get there.
I'll be the second.
Yeah, would love that. I saw you were chatting too. You're looking for some like text to speech stuff. Definitely can. Like, I'm not super familiar with it, but I'd be happy to help you any way I can, Bushido. If you want to shoot me a DM or whatever, if you have questions.
And then here. My DMs are open, Mr. Bushido. Yeah,
Mr. Bushido's got some great thoughts that I think like the community would like. Like, I think it's like a good space, because he has like a lot of different ideas, which I don't agree with all of them, but there are some where I'm like, oh, I never considered that, and then it leads me down a whole nother path. So definitely would love to see you make some content. And then also another super
Can
chat.
you hear me all right, by the way?
Oh, yep.
Okay, perfect. Just double checking.
And then last super chat, it'll lead us right back to some Emu talk real quick, is who is Emu's assistant? What if she's Metatron God's right-hand angel? I'm not sure if I know that. Maybe you guys know the reference. I'm not sure. But who guarded his eternal plan and was the middleman for God and angels? P.S. Carrot next chapter. Oh, well, I'm with you on Carrot being in the next chapter, because we've seen the great value Carrot like every chapter in Egghead for the last like couple months. So a version of Carrot will almost for sure be in there. But I am curious what you guys think of like Emu's assistant, or just that situation. Or Prince, earlier you mentioned the map, right? I guess I'm just curious if you think they're like, I guess what's going on with the map and stuff, if you guys have any thoughts. But then I also want to know about the assistant. Why, like, how is somebody allowed in the throne room? Like, who is that? Is that is that an actual human slave or something, or is that another special person? I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that, but anyone can pick up on that.
Yeah, I got a couple. Firstly, like, if anybody in the chat Googles, like, looks for this person, what they'll find is like an anime shot with a zoom up, and it actually shows that the assistant's wearing like a straw hat with a red band around it, which is really weird. I'm not sure like how allowed it is, because maybe that's a spoiler, and what it's like with like the poneglyph in Alabaster and stuff. And yeah, and I think it's weird. I also think, what was the other half of the question? Was
the map. The map was one. Yeah.
So I won't say too much, but I know Koob's working on a theory at the moment about how, like, people have spoken about the fourth wall break and how ink might change reality. So in other words, we see Ian crossing the island out, Lulesia. That might literally be some sort of ability or something where whatever she denotes on the actual map, it happens in real life, maybe. So yeah, that's my thoughts.
Yeah, like a reality warping kind of thing, which, by the way, I think that could be an interesting tie to Bonnie, actually, because Bonnie's fruit, like, we all think of ages, but it's really a timeline fruit in a way, right? Because she made herself buff. She's like distorted future and made herself all buff, right? So she could like hurt Vegapunk or whatever. So it's like a weird distorting timeline type of deal, right? And so we look at this like like a reality bending kind of thing where you can like mark on the map and it just kind of happens or whatever. That's what that kind of makes me think of as Bonnie, because also remember when Bonnie was captured, a Kainu came to get her, and Blackbeard like scrammed, and he was like, it made my blood boil to hear that you were caught, or whatever it is, right? Something to that effect. And so that makes me think, we're talking about this Emu potentially, whatever their powers are, but something crazy like that. And I'm like, well, Bonnie kind of does, like, she can almost choose a future and make it happen, right? And that's kind of what Emu might be able to do, right? We're kind of stretching it, but I do
there's
like
definitely some potential there. Like, yeah, it's mad potential. If you mix her ability, like, I'm not sure how respected Gold Roger is here, probably not much, but he does talk about this idea that Luffy, he's got the ability to manipulate reality. She has the ability to manipulate time, and Kuma can take non-physical or intangible things and tangibilize them, make them physical. So we could get a situation where like Luffy literally bends reality to go back in time or something like that. But that's spicy.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. The warping reality like to your imagination from Joy Boy. That's like the whole thing, right? That's crazy. Anyone else got any thoughts before the next topic on Emu or any of this?
Yeah. So let's say I made the comparison between Vegapunk having satellites and Emu possibly having satellites / parasites. And this is just further proof of my Mary theory. One of the titles of Mary is actually Mary Stella, which means Star of the Sea. So it's just a weird coincidence that that's the specific word Oda chose to label Vegapunk. And with the lady clothed in the sun, she has the stars around her head and all that. So if Emu has actually 6, not 5 stars, what is the 6th star? It can't be Uranus, because why would it be one of the ancient weapons that are sought after?
I agree
if she
with
already
you.
has that as one of her, that wouldn't really make sense.
I agree.
And I highly doubt it's the sun, because like wouldn't the sun just overshadow any other satellite? It's like once you have the sun, that's like the ultimate star in the context of these, if you consider the planet stars. It would just be so OP, you know. There's one other option though, the moon. So this assistant could actually represent the moon. And now I want to shout out another creator who, unfortunately, I can't find him anywhere on social media. I'd love to reach out to him. Is Gabiru D Rat. He has this fantastic video about how he thinks Carrot is actually from the world government. And once you see his evidence, it's like how I felt when I was watching Denden's and Cube's God Valley theory. When I was watching it, it's like, this isn't just interesting, like the evidence just makes so much sense. Like it actually ties. That's a very solid concrete theory.
Oh, I got to get Bushido's thoughts on that. That's interesting.
He's the one that told me about the video.
Wow, that's a really interesting take. I have never heard that. I'm like kind of like my brain's kind of
so good. So go watch it.
I'm gonna have to. It's like one of those things where I'm gonna have to sit here for a while. Like I need to watch it and think about it before I give my thoughts, because like that's like right off the top that hits me. Also real quick, I see
The reason I bring it up.
Just real quick, I see Polipede Works is leaving. Just want to give you a shout out, Polipede. I think I'm saying your name right, Polipede. I think Polipede.
Yeah, faithfully. Yeah.
Polipede. We need to get you on one of these, man. But appreciate you stopping in for sure.
Yes.
What were you gonna say though, Elids? I think you were gonna say something.
The reason I bring up his theory is because he speculates that assistant of Emu is actually the mother of Carrot. And if it is, it actually makes perfect sense, because then there's a good chance she herself would be a rabbit. And if she's a rabbit and she has the moon, it just goes together like perfectly, Kaguya.
And you brought up like the old leader of the Minks was like a sheep mink, right? And she's like the new current leader of the Minks. So that's like another deep, like kind of just Joy Boy connection there, I feel like. And then even generally, definitely. It went sheep guy, day and night, right? Because like Neko Mamushi and Inarashi covered day and night. So it's like you have some pretty crazy little connections there with Zoe. Wow. Hey, yes, man. Wow. Sure. All right. Well, I'm glad I haven't done any emu theories for a little while, because now I gotta recalibrate. There's some crazy stuff. All right. Let's see. I'm looking through my questions here. I want to get to like because we just talked so much about the government and everything. I want to switch it up just a little bit here. Let's see. Why don't we talk about? All right. I like this one. Let's talk about Shanks. I want to know, obviously the last chapter that we got was all about Shanks and what's going on. He cooked kid, rest in peace, rest in pieces, probably
demolished,
and so I want to know, where is Shanks going next? Because he's mentioned multiple times in Elbaf that like we're leaving soon, like we got to head out, we got to finish this quick, whatever, blah blah blah. And he also said after Wano, let's go get the One Piece, right? So to me, there's probably two options, which would be to Laugh Tale to go get the One Piece, or to Egghead. Now maybe there's a chance he's trying to go fight Blackbeard also, which might just be Egghead at this point. But to me, that seems like the most likely scenario. It's either Laugh Tale or Egghead. So I want to know from you guys, where do you think Shanks is going? And Prince, let's start off with you. What's going on with Shanks? What do you think?
In my opinion, I think it's very simple. He's Blackbeard hunting, man. He's trying to go for every single place that Blackbeard's at. We're talking about possibly going to Wano, then intel of where he is next, following him literally everywhere in terms of like pre-time skip, post-time skip, warning Blackbeard, possibly even warning the Gorosei as well. We don't know who that specific pirate was, but many speculate it's either Blackbeard, Luffy, or just like any out of the name brand pirate that no one even expects, but most people think it's Blackbeard. So yeah, I just think he's on Blackbeard's tail right now. So it could be anything related to that. And I don't think that Blackbeard is coming to Egghead, because in my opinion, I think it's Aokiji. But I would be like just mind blown if Shanks, Blackbeard, Kizaru, Aokiji, Saturn, Luffy are all at Egghead at once. It would definitely make for the Egghead incident to be much crazier than Ohara. And it would make sense to how much it was being hyped up in Dressrosa if that incident they were talking about in Dressrosa is specifically Egghead. And also when
Yeah.
it comes to the One Piece, I think that not necessarily Shanks is going for it, but I think that he realizes that Luffy has enough pieces for it. Because I think that he knows that Luffy will go for Laugh Tale specifically, and he's not going for it. I just think that he's like more so a balancing factor, where like he's just trying to make everybody's odds to getting the One Piece like an equal shot.
Yeah, because it's interesting because obviously he just took the 3 rubbings from Kid, obviously, and then the other people who would even be close to finding Laugh Tale would be Blackbeard, Luffy, and Law, right? But now Blackbeard's probably taking care of Law as we speak. So then it's from Shanks' perspective, it's like, hey, if I can take down Blackbeard, Luffy's gonna make it, right? Like if he is kind of playing referee almost, like that's how I think of it a little bit. So what any other thoughts from Den or Elids? Any Shanks or even Blackbeard thoughts, honestly, because I think that's going to be deeply tied.
Just that, I do want to say that was fire, Prince. That was absolutely fire, dude. Like, yeah, I'm sure you could go into it in more detail if we have more time and stuff, but like that's pretty nutty. Yeah.
Yeah, I like the Blackbeard hunting. Like that's why he went to Wano, or that's what it seems like.
Yeah, and I do agree that Akainu. It's probably Akainu that will come. Not Akainu, sorry.
Aokiji.
Yeah, Kiju's going to come to Egghead, I think. Like, 3-day trip, absolute legend in the community. She speculates a lot about Saturn having, like, time properties or time abilities, like Kronos vibe. And the only thing that I can think of that goes against time manipulation in the One Piece world is cold. And like Aokiji obviously has the
time
frozen
capsule.
power. We recently, it's time capsule and Ice Age, and we saw him preserve O'Hara's will with Sol, who then was thawed and like went on to live, right? So I could see him coming in and slowing down the time a little bit.
I love that. Yeah, and big shout out to 3-Day, by the way. I think I've shouted out 3-Day like every stream. Keeping everything going in the background and just making fire theories. Actually, I've mentioned this on stream a couple times, but I have a Valo Pizarro theory that I'm hoping to drop tomorrow. If not, it'll be Monday. And 3-Day helped me a lot with that, so I'm actually shouting out her in the last arc in that video. So big shout out to 3-Day for sure. And shout out to the last arc also. Yeah, love what you guys are doing with the last arc. That's like, I think the community definitely can use something like that. And so building off of the Shanks thing, though, I guess I just want your thoughts also. Prince, you briefly mentioned it about Blackbeard showing up to Egghead. I don't have a Blackbeard question exactly. Well, I sort of do. I guess I can switch it over, but it's deep. They're pretty connected. What's Blackbeard doing with Law? Or conversely, Prince, you mentioned Blackbeard showing up. It's probably just Aokiji, not actually Blackbeard. So I want to know, Prince, I guess you can start with this one too, but then I'm sure everyone has some thoughts here. But who's showing up there on Blackbeard's ship? What Blackbeard pirates are on the ship? What do they want? And I guess, and maybe even start that off with, is Law already packed up? Because obviously if Blackbeard's showing up, that means Law is packed up. If Blackbeard's not there, it's going to make people wonder if Law is packed up. So I guess maybe start with that, but then let me know what you think they're doing at Egghead.
Yeah, so I talked about this on OPU before, but I'll just briefly talk about it here as well. Pretty much what I think is that the whole idea of Sabayoti's events being mirrored, as well as Enies Lobby, the O'Hara incident being mirrored into Egghead, I think it's going to be flipped very well, in the sense that if you look at Sabayoti and the Admiral coming in, we see Kizaru absolutely wrecking the entirety of Sabayoti, causing chaos, everybody's sprinting left, right, and center, and we're seeing everyone except for Luffy escape with pretty much no consequences other than some like minor setbacks. It really like takes time to adjust to the fact that, wow, Luffy really took the blunt of almost everything negative that happened at Sabayoti. So I think that it's going to be the exact opposite in terms of outcome and expectations for Egghead. So I think that obviously we saw Kid already losing. I do think that Law is going to lose as well. And pretty much every single supernova is going to come out with some kind of loss that's involved with this Egghead incident, which I think also includes Bonnie. But the only person who will remain standing at the top and will actually get a victory over everything else is Luffy. and I think this will propel him even further, like with the whole idea of kidnapping Vegapunk, like this whole story, being able to evade an admiral or all these different enemy forces coming into play. I think that's one crucial thing that Luffy will be able to like upheld himself over. But when it comes to Blackbeard, I think that Aokiji's gonna come in and maybe see Kizaru for the first time, talk with him, or just like have this first interaction in 2 years after abandoning the Marines. But I think that it's gonna be a swap. It's gonna be very interesting because I think that Caribou is the 10th Titanic captain. He's gonna swap positions with Aokiji in the sense that Aokiji shows that he's a spy of Sword or some kind of Revolutionary Army spy or something for the good side of the One Piece world.
Right.
And Caribou defects to Blackbeard or shows that he was Blackbeard's 10 Titanic captain all along. And now he has information on Poseidon, on Pluton, on Wano, on Luffy's, not transformation, but like most of the information of the Straw Hats, which obviously Blackbeard is against. Having an information on a Yonko crew plus 2 ancient weapons, very, very valuable. So I think that Caribou's going to defect or show that he's a part of the Blackbeard Pirates. And then also somehow in the mix is going to be York. Somehow either gaining the fruits of labor that she has from creating all this chaos by becoming a celestial dragon, or she possibly goes to the Blackbeard route as well. So I think there's going to be a shit ton of chaos. Sorry, I don't know if I can cuss or not, but I think there's going to be a lot of chaos when it comes to Blackbeard's arrival or Blackbeard's arrival, like with his crew. But either with him coming or just a satellite or one of his spokespersons coming in and being like, it's time to get Caribou back, or to get some vital things from Egghead that we've been missing all along. It's gonna be epic.
Yeah,
sure.
I like that idea that he's getting Caribou. Like that, to me, that's like kind of the allure of it. Like it's funny because like I know he has like the X on his chest, which like could be 10, and like that's why he's the 10th Titanic captain. I almost like the idea more like if he's not the 10th captain, but he's still working with Blackbeard and everything, just because I guess I'm looking at it from the perspective of like I wouldn't want him to fight a Straw Hat in the end type of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But everything like I think that's so valid. Like you brought up the ancient weapon stuff. Like he's obviously telling somebody important. Like to me, the only other option would be like Crocodile or somebody like that. You know what I mean? Like I highly doubt it's a Marine member or anything. I'm sure it's going to be a pirate of some kind. But I guess so. Real quick. So I know you said Aokiji is probably showing up. What other members do you like? Do you think Lafitte is going to be involved in any way, shape, or form?
Honestly, I have no clue as far as the other Blackbeard pirates.
Okay.
But in my mind, like one sure shot, because he hasn't been shown a lot in the actual manga, but rather in cover stories, I think Aokiji's got to pull up. If it's something this crazy, and he's been referenced with Ice Time, with lore for Saul, like showing that he's still alive. It just makes sense that to mirror Ohara's incident, he also shows up at Egghead's incident.
Yeah, that's exactly it. The Ohara connection, and we had like the Will of Ohara chapter, and then we also had like the Ohara like little flashback like 2 chapters ago that I personally wasn't a fan of, because I felt like, okay, like we just had a Ohara flashback, but Oda's obviously emphasizing the importance of Ohara, right, with all of this, and Aokiji was the focus on that. So any other thoughts from Denden or Elids about just all this Blackbeard stuff going on in Egghead, or just Egghead in general?
One thing I will say is I don't know how the community has missed this, but the panel that shows the ship coming shows the Jolly Roger, or it shows half the Jolly Roger. So if you go back and look at Blackbeard's fleet, you can tell exactly what ship that is, but we still don't know who's on there.
Right, because that's the thing is Blackbeard's main ship is the Saber of Zebek, but we haven't seen that yet. So I'm always like even like you're right, like they're like you can tell apart like some of the ships, because we've seen him have like a little armada of ships before. Like they're all rafts, but like there's like a signifier for like the main one or whatever. But it still isn't the Saber of Zebek. So I'm always questioning it, like why are they doing that, right? Like they're keeping their main ship hidden.
main thought, like initially, was that it was Law. It's Law's pirates that have like commandeered one of Blackbeard's ships after the battle, and they'll go report the situation to Egghead. But I don't know. One thing that is pretty wild is I'm not sure how Oda's going to manage a Blackbeard pirate there, whilst you've got Gorosei and stuff like that. That's getting a bit wild. Like if he can do that, I'd love it.
Yeah,
but we'll have to see.
That like. Obviously, the last chapter was super hype, but I think my favorite part was Blackbeard showing up. Like, for me, that was just like, I don't know, Blackbeard's like probably my third or fourth favorite character in the story, honestly. Maybe like fifth, somewhere around there. So I saw that pull up, and I'm ready, man. That's, like you said, Oda's gonna have a hard time balancing it all. Like, it's gonna be like a Ohara, Marineford, Saba, Odi. Like, it's gonna be hectic for like a couple chapters, and then I'm not exactly sure what, but something's gonna happen where they get out, and it, you know what I mean, and it's just that's gonna be it. But I don't know what it is. Like,
it's definitely gonna be fast paced, 100%.
Yeah,
at least like in 10-15 chapters at most. But in those 10-15 chapters, it's gonna be action packed. So many things are gonna be happening, chaos everywhere, and we're gonna love it. So
yeah.
I can't wait.
Yeah. We're in for a treat. And I also saw this super chat from Terrible TJ. Bushido, I'll get to yours in just a second, but he said Caribou will help Vegapunk or the Punk Records get off the island, Terrible TJ says. And I like that a lot too, because I know you brought up the Caribou stuff working with Blackbeard, and I mean, I think that's totally valid for sure. But I think it's also worth noting, you know, I mean, Caribou can hide stuff, right? Like he can I mean, Luffy could theoretically shrink stuff, but I've always wondered, like, Punk Records is huge, right? Like, they have, like, how is that gonna get preserved? Like, how is that even possible? And I mean, Caribou technically can do that, right? Like, he could bury it in the swamp, you know, whatever it is. So I do like that a lot, because it's also, like, if you were thinking of it from a perspective of, like, detection, like, if you were trying to sneak people out, sneak Punk Records, like, they wouldn't even suspect Caribou, right? Like if somebody saw him, it's like, what are you doing here? Like what? Like you're irrelevant to this whole situation. You know what I mean? But he actually like snuck everyone inside. You know, almost gives me.
He also has a lot of ties to Fate. Sorry to interrupt. Sorry.
I was just gonna say it also gives me some vibes of Beige with like the castle. Like he can put everyone inside of him and hide it, and you don't even know he has an army with him, right? But continue with what you were about to say.
I was just gonna say, like, I've always, for a while now,
there
I've always
is a
liked
connection between.
sorry.
Oh, sorry.
I think I'm lagging. My bad. All I was gonna say was that, like, Caribou mentions, like he does all this spying, and it's all just happened. It's all happenstance. It's like all happenstance, or however you say it. Sorry, like he just is fated to be there. So it would make sense for him to be a BB pirate, I'd say. But there's a lot of other options.
Elids.
Yeah, I was gonna say I would argue there's evidence in the story that could foreshadow a potential connection between Vegapunk and Caribou, and that's the cover story that had him appear as Gabiru, who was known as a revolutionary, which we know Vegapunk has ties to the revolution. But even better is the symbol that was associated with Gabiru, which was a star, and it was a star with like circles around it, which it just makes me think of Vegapunk so much.
Right.
So we haven't even seen Vegapunk interact with Caribou. Like, what if he sees him? He goes, Gabiru? Wait, you're still alive? You know?
Dude.
And then he just thinks like, this is my ally.
Oh man, you're cooking, because also. Okay, wow. So remember how Dragon was like a freedom fighter before he started the revolutionaries, whatever that was?
Yeah.
Like, okay, like I'm trying to connect all the dots here. So because I remember I talked to Threevil about this too, and I can't remember all the specific details, but I'm pretty sure it says he's a revolutionary somewhere, right? Like on his flag or something like that. And the Revolutionary Army has like their commanders, right? There's like the east, west, north, south, and then the Grand Line commander is Ivankov. And then you could maybe say Sabo is the New World one, but because he's like the chief of staff. But maybe that was Gabiru, right? Gabiru maybe was the what, you know, that like the new world commander, and then that connects back to the freedom fighter thing in Vegapunk, because remember, Dragon and Vegapunk met a long time ago whenever he started the Revolutionary Army, and Gabiru seemed to have died a while ago, so it's like Gabiru was probably around near the start of the Revolutionary Army but died at some point along the way, and it would make sense that then Vegapunk would have known him, and like because of the connections with Dragon and everything. So that is crazy. Like it could be where he sees him, and because of all those connections I just laid out, it's like, Gabiru, what are you doing here? And then he has the flashback to that old woman who was giving him meat pies and stuff, and then he probably is conflicted because maybe Caribou's like, he has a way to get off the island, and then at the last second Vegapunk's like, Gabiru, and then Caribou has to be like, oh man, like he has like a moral dilemma of like, I gotta go help him now, you know, like he has that connection to that old woman, and maybe that old woman somehow knows Vegapunk too, right? Something like that. And that island also had mountains built on it, like building mountains. That's like a Vegapunk level feat in my opinion, like somewhere around there. So that blew me away.
These are all the random stuff I have in my head that I don't make videos about. I make shorts. That's why I say
Same here.
people, if you want to make channels, reach out to me, but also reach out to other people. I think this is so fantastic, the platform. It'd be so cool if you did this for your viewers, and you know, maybe they could build up the courage to come on your platform and share your thoughts. I think that'd be so cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess that's a shout out to everyone. If anyone here has ever wanted to even thought about making a YouTube channel, like you had One Piece thoughts or even other anime thoughts and you want to make a channel, I would say definitely, you know, join my Discord, because we have a pretty active place to talk about how to start a YouTube channel. And then like Elids is saying, like if you want ideas, or you have, you know, you're looking a way to voice those ideas or connections or whatever, you know, we're definitely, at least I know Elids and I, and probably most people, especially in my Discord, definitely a good place to start talking about that if you want to start a channel, like if you need ideas or technical help or whatever.
If you ever had the general idea of like even a small conception of a thought to start a One Piece YouTube channel, or just a channel in general, I'd say do it. You only live once, go for it. You probably have a theory that might just blow away everyone out the water, so just go for it.
Yep. It's so true. Almost 9 months ago exactly, I released my first video ever on YouTube, and I had no expectations, and I have like a career now doing it. So so seriously, if you know, whether it's you just have ideas and don't know how to start a YouTube, or you want to, you know how to do all that but you don't have ideas or how to script them or whatever, you know, we're definitely here to help you for sure. What was I gonna say? I'm gonna get to a couple super chats real quick, unless somebody else wants to add on to that.
Just quickly say, like, I totally second that. Totally second that. If anyone ever wants anything, just let us know. We're a pretty solid like community of like helping people produce content, so just get involved.
Yeah, the last arc is probably an excellent place for anyone who has good theories and stuff too, for sure. I'm sure 3Day has been plugging it, but we mentioned it a few times, but I don't know, and maybe hopefully I don't explain it poorly, but Last Arc is like a collection of creators, right, who have different theories, and you and Den you, and I'm not exactly sure what the process is, but you're helping put theories, like videos, to people's theories, correct?
And the other way around, but the most popular one will probably be people that want their theories turned into videos, or they can do half and we'll do half. It's more of just giving them a little push and support and leveling up their content a little bit to a higher level that will get out there. And it's monetized, so you know, all the profits share between the people who are involved, like whoever made that video. But hit us up if you've ever got art, music, anything. We're pretty open, and the channels are only been open a couple of weeks or a month or so, just check it out, and cheers for the plug as well.
Oh, absolutely. And I also, while we're doing all the shout outs, so I might as well just keep going real quick. I want to shout out another creator who reached out to me recently, and Den, I'm sure this is a opportunity if you need One Piece music or anything for videos and stuff. I just linked them in the chat. Someone reached out to me, and you're going to be hearing their music on my videos. I just love their channel, and I was just pumped they reached out. Their name's Jordan D Piano. They do a lot of piano covers for One Piece songs, and they want to grow their brand, and so they told me and said I can mention other creators as well if you want to use. But you have to attribute their channel and everything in the description, and probably reach out to them to get the songs and all that. But they said if you're a creator and you want to get some piano covers and stuff of One Piece songs, which they're great. He sent me he's very professional piano player. I just want to shout him out as well. If anyone needs music for the videos, Last Arc, or anyone else, reach out to him for sure.
Yeah, thanks.
I was just thinking, I need some banger One Piece music, instrumentals in the back. I just found it. Perfect.
There you go. Yeah. He emailed me, and like I listened to a couple songs, and like within 10 minutes, I'm like, oh yeah, dude, I'm using this. Like, please, they're all just piano. So I would say, you're probably gonna mix it, but like when maybe like sentimental moments or whatever, definitely. Or even just, I don't know. I already have a few songs in the next video. He makes some great music.
See, Preach is in the chat. Preach is an extremely tough judge. So if Preach says it's fire, I know for a fact that he's saying something right. So I'm definitely gonna look into it.
Hey, shout out to Preach. It's Preach. I definitely recommend that. Yep. Let's see real quick. Mr. Bushido, or I guess, okay, I think we're good with the with the shout out. I love the love, but I think it's time to move back into a couple other questions here. Mr. Bushido super chatted €2 and said, did Blackbeard run into Big Mom's ship? That's why no show. I guess I would also extrapolate this back to you guys and also wonder, that question, yes, but then also, what do you guys think for Big Mom in the future? Like, what do you guys think? I guess that Big Mom's alive is a question, or just
that's probably a clue, yeah.
Or Elbaf. Is Elbaf the future?
Yeah, well, like for anyone who doesn't know, like go look at the cover page with Aikiji and Van Alga, and you'll see Puddin ripping up Big Mom's Vibra card and chucking it off the boat in the wind. So there you go. She's alive. Kaido's probably not. Boom.
Yeah.
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 I
was gonna say
that's
my
basically
sentiment.
fact.
Yeah, I was gonna say my sentiment for it. We can also see Zeus alive as well, popping with Nami, and that's Big Mom's soul, so that's confirmation that she's alive. But like my sentiment towards the whole thing is that I want Big Mom to be dead, but she is alive. And Kaido, I think, is definitely dead though, because of the whole like death infatuation and him wanting a grand death, but then in reality he gets punched into lava. No one knows how he died, so it's a good way to show how Luffy broke or shattered Kaido's dream of dying a grand death. So it would make sense that he's dead, but Big Mom still being alive is a possibility. Also with the whole, Olin route, I know it could be like a bit corny and cheesy because like, oh, Big Mom was such a terrible and feared Yonko, and then now she lost her memory and is now just a good guy again, or like has like pure thoughts and intentions. But we could see any route from Big Mom, to be honest. But the one fact that still remains, she is alive.
Yep, I'm with that. Elids, it sounded like you had some thoughts.
Yeah, I was gonna say, to me, it's a fact that if Big Mom was dead, we would know because her crew members wouldn't be banking on her coming back. They would, because they all have her Viva cards.
Yep.
Even Lola, who wasn't even in the crew anymore, had her Viva card. So they would know for a fact that she was dead. So I think that's pretty obvious. And is she gonna come back? For sure. And I definitely think it's Elbaf. And this ties into my Red Sea theory, which is that there is actually a sea below the Earth's crust, which isn't exactly just magma, but is actually magma mixed with pyrobloin, just like how the Sky Islands are clouds mixed with pyrobloin. And with this pyrobloin creates what I dubbed pyro water. I love coming up with my own terms. So I call it pyro water. It's just this,
I love that.
It's magma that imitates water.
I like that because of the pyrobloin, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like it's in the sky.
It's just too good.
Yeah, like it comes from volcanoes and it gets blown to the sky, so it just makes sense that. Okay, anyway, it sounds like you have more. Sorry, I cut you off, but but I like that.
No problem. Yeah, it's what's crazy is in my Red Sea theory, which came out about 2 years ago, I mentioned specifically that I believe the roots of the Atom Tree will go as far down into the Red Sea. And we're about to go to Elbaf, which we're going to find the Atom Tree. And Elbaf is the perfect place for us to get introduced into the Red Sea, because the Atom Tree seems to be very similar to the World Tree, and the World Tree is said to have worlds in its roots. And of those worlds, there's three in particular that you can kind of consider the underworld. One is pretty obvious, it's Hell, Helheim, which is where the term Hell comes from. Then you have Niflheim, and then you have is it called Mustafar? It's this no, that's Star Wars. There's this fireplace where there's like these fire giants. So there's a fire world, there's an ice world, and then there's this world of fog, which is really where you tribute the dead go to. And it's interesting because I think there's so many different foreshadows this in One Piece, and specifically it's Punk Hazard, because you had island that was ice, you had island that was fire, and then what Caesar did to the island made an island full of fog, poisonous fog. So I think that was very much foreshadowing Elbaf, and Punk Hazard even has like the giants are attributed, those ancient numbers are attributed to that. Kaido's experimented there. That's where giant children were being experimented. So I think that Oda was very much foreshadowing a whole lot in Punk Hazard that's going to appear now, because we have Egghead, but also Elbaf. So Big Mom and Kaido even got defeated and were down there. And once I saw that, I was like, ka-ching, my theory is starting to make so much more sense. Muspelheim, thank you, not Mustafar. Although I do think there will be like something there where there's gonna be some Star Wars references. I do predict in the future.
We've already seen lightsabers,
but
so
that's so
who
off
knows?
topic.
Yep.
Yes, exactly.
Yep.
It's worth pointing out
I
as
don't
well,
think
Big
it's
Mom
gonna-
obviously stated the debt, right? Like, Kaido owed her a debt. And it wouldn't surprise me if Big Mom took that debt when they were down there, like, sucked his soul out, ate that up like a little snack, and then when it exploded, she got fired off somewhere else.
Damn. I didn't even think
Yeah,
about
I hope she comes back real skinny and cool. That'd be cool.
I would love that soul thing, especially because like I'm a little biased where I just want Kaido to come back. Like he doesn't have to be scary, like he can be like shriveled up or something, you know what I mean? But I want him to just talk more. That's mainly the reason. Like I want to learn more from him and stuff. But I would love that soul thing you brought up. Like what if she took all but like a year or something, right? Like she did take that debt, but it's like, all right, like Kaido, I know you want to accomplish like XYZ, like I'll give you like 3 months left or something like that. Because I mean, he would be in a state where he would be like fearful, quote unquote, maybe, you know what I mean, where he could actually lose his soul, because that's like a prerequisite, right, to like take soul, is like they're afraid of you. So if he was like defeated, quote unquote, or just unconscious, maybe he couldn't even stop her, right, something like that. So I like that a lot. And I know, Kushi, you also brought up earlier stuff about the Big Mom Beaver card and stuff like that. That's from 3 Days video, right, on the last arc, right, if I remember right. I think that was mentioned in that one, and as well as a bunch of other Big Mom stuff.
It's called Big Mom's Alive, and it is fire. I think it's like 20 minutes, and it's just basically 3 day, like, I mean, I'm not even sure how much we can go into this, because it ties into Kreha, Carmel, Higurashi, all the old people, God Valley. But yeah, that video is fire. Check that out, people.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what. So, I do want to get back into that. All right, real quick. Okay, we're gonna circle back to that because there's a big point in that video I want to bring up, but we're gonna circle back to that in a minute. First off, I'm gonna, like I said, we'll circle back. I want to get into a different question right now, which we touched on a little bit. But I know that this is like what a lot of people are talking about, and we touched on a little bit. Is the Egghead incident. And before I ask anyone specifically on their opinions on this, I want to shout out a super chat from Spyros for €2 that said, how do you think Frankie will shine in this arc? And the reason why I want to shout out the super chat now with this question is because I think, not that the Egghead incident itself is going to tie to Frankie, but obviously Egghead and Vegapunk and everything are meant to level Frankie up in some way, right? Like I think that's pretty clear. Like Frankie is some way going to learn something from Vegapunk or Egghead or what have you, right? And he's going to improve. So I guess I would just like, I have some thoughts on it, but I guess I would just open the door first. I want to know about Frankie specifically. What do you guys think Frankie's role is, either in Egghead or if Vegapunk leaves, what is he going to learn from Vegapunk? Anyone? I know it's a tough one.
I'll shoot, but after that I have to go, if that's all right. I'm really sorry.
Oh, go. No, that's totally cool. We're already over 2 hours, so that's totally cool. But if you have thoughts on it, for sure.
Right, so, and we do have a video on it as well. So basically, Frankie, if you know about him, he got found just as he was about to die in the middle of a sea by some like ghost ship or something. When you look at it, it does look like the mad ship Dufeld had. There's all sorts of ties, but basically, when he's found by that ship, he turns into like a cyborg, right? He builds himself into a cyborg with the spare parts that are there. Afterwards, he's covered in stars. Who else has stars? Vegapunk, absolutely covered in them. And then you have Usopp say to like Frankie recently, "I'm Vegapunk," and that's Usopp the liar, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's just loads of ties between Mads. One other tie as well that's distinct is that none of them really made weapons except for Vegapunk made a few tanks, and Frankie is the only one out of all of them that does like he specializes in weapons, and they're all numbered as well like Mads. But yeah, with that, thank you very, very much for letting me come on, man. Big love to all of you, and I'm gonna shoot. Thank you, chat, as well. You're a legend.
No, thank you for coming on, man. I really appreciate it. Everyone, go check out Den. We didn't get to talk about it yet, or we'll talk about it in the future. But Den also is who like helped me think a lot of the Long Ring Longland stuff. So so if you like that, he also has a video, even talking more about the Long Ring Longland stuff and Joy Boy's connection to it and stuff. So, much love, man. And tree. Oh, I know. Yeah, I want. That's like the next.
Great tree.
Yeah, that's the next question. Well, one of the next questions was about Kureha also. So I'll just say this much: if you have any thoughts about Kureha, you need to go watch Den's video first. I shouted it out in my Chopper video for a reason. You know what I mean? Like before it even came out.
Her son is definitely a Choku, the Rocks pirate, Wang Ji as well. But anyway, right, peace, boys. Much love.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it.
Nice to meet you.
Oh, nice to meet you as well. Oh, shit, never mind.
And something just real quick, just tying to that Kureha stuff, and I don't even have like a full theory on it, but it's just interesting, is Oda loves using pirate names, and one that he's definitely going to use at some point is Long John Silver, if you guys know like the fish fast food place. And then think about that, Long John Silver, Captain John, Silver's Rayleigh, and and then Kureha also has like some facial similarities there. So just some interesting points. But back to this Frankie stuff real quick, and just Egghead in general. I want to get your guys' thoughts on what do you guys think about the egg that is Egghead staying on the Sunny, and Frankie can basically tap into it, like he becomes like a satellite. Like remember, like Kushi mentioned, Usopp said like I am Vegapunk, like in that discussion with Frankie or whatever. It's like, what if Frankie is able to connect to Punk Records and they keep it on the ship, and then he has like a constant access point, to like learn new things and improve stuff. So he's like, instead of having to learn everything, he's just able to act. It's like a library, right? Anytime he needs to learn how to build a new thing, he can access into the egg. And obviously Roger had an egg on their ship. So what do you guys think about that?
I think that'd be a really interesting way of having Vegapunk actually really join the ship, because I'm not of the camp that Vegapunk's actually going to travel with them. But it would be a cool twist if it's like this, and I wouldn't even imagine it be the whole egg, but maybe like a fragmented version of the egg where it has answers, but it's fragmented. So you're not getting the instant gratification of figuring things out. Maybe it's fragmented. So you have to like piece together what this fraction of Vegapunk mind knows to make it, not too easy for the Straw Hats, but also have an interesting mystery element to it. I never thought of that, and that's really cool.
Yeah, shout out to I think Brandon King was the first one to mention the egg being like Roger's egg during one of my streams, and I've been kind of sold on it ever since. Like he just needs an egg, I don't know about you guys, but I think Roger's egg was Uranus, or like had Uranus in it, or however that works. And so people have talked about Uranus controlling the weather and stuff, right? Or having some kind of connection to that. And what can they do at Egghead? Control the weather, right? Like remember Frankie was at Karakuri where Vegapunk failed to change the weather, and it's just like, all of those things can come to light if he just gets that egg on the ship. Like the weather, and Nami can control the weather now, probably as she pleases with the egg, which she uses weather eggs in her attacks, right? Yeah. So it goes deep, man. It goes deep. So I guess I guess I'll just say for the chat, we are going to wrap it up in maybe 20 minutes or so, 20-30 minutes, somewhere around there, just FYI. But I want to get your guys' thoughts on so when it comes to the Egghead incident, obviously it's going to be all these people, you know, Kizaru, the Gorosei, Blackbeard, like all these people are coming together and something's going to happen. But usually whenever like people talk about these incidents, there's usually like one big catalyst for it, right? Like if we go to like I don't even know if it's canonically called this, I think it is, but like the Sabaody incident, it's like that happened because Luffy punched a celestial dragon, right? That is when people say like the Sabaody incident, yes, it's the Buster Call, yes, it's all this, but none of that happens without Luffy punching the celestial dragon. Like that's what caused the incident. That's like why it is known as the incident or whatever, right? So with this Egghead situation, my guess is that Luffy's gonna punch Saturn. Not saying Saturn's weak or anything, right? It's gonna be maybe a quick thing, and Saturn's like, "Oh, you really are Joy Boy." Like he points to the scar he has or something like that. But that's my thought. Is the incident is going to be that the Gorosei member shows up and gets hit by Luffy, so it's like it's a step up of what we saw at Sabaody, because there's already so many Sabaody parallels. So I guess I want to get your guys' thoughts on that, and if you don't agree, what do you think like the incident is, or like what is going to be the most important element to all this, I guess, because there's obviously like one big thing I feel like is going to happen, like a bunch of big things, but one giant thing. So I guess I'm just curious on your guys' thoughts.
I do agree with the whole idea of it being just like the Sabaody incident where Luffy punches a celestial dragon. But if you also look at the rank of celestial dragons, you can see that Charlos, also being an idiot completely, is also a very low rank, even though he is a celestial dragon. Whereas the Gorosei are literally the highest tier of celestial dragons possible, other than Emu. So if you look at it, I think it'll actually be reversed, or it'd just be a situation where Luffy fights Saturn and like this whole clash happens. But I think that's one of two parts. And the second part mirrors the Ohara incident. And in the Ohara incident, we see Professor Clover talking about the ancient kingdom, how it was constructed to be in the first place, how it was a kingdom 800 years ago, and he was about to say the name, but he was obviously offed and iced before he could even say it, because the name was that dangerous to even say aloud. So I think Vegapunk will do the same thing, where he will go about talking about the ancient kingdom, try to bring out as much information as possible to everyone who's around, trying to talk as much of the knowledge that he has like to the world before he gets like offed completely. And just before he's about to say the ancient kingdom's name, instead of him saying it, like if he gets like iced, or like he just like gets killed like straight off, before like the sentence is finished, instead of him saying it, Luffy just blurts out the name of the ancient kingdom, like unwillingly,
That
or
would
like
be dope.
just out of nowhere. And he doesn't even do it like out of his own will. It's Joy Boy's will, because he knows what the ancient kingdom's name is.
Like,
so he's just
Luffy
just
connects the
saying-
dots like
Yeah,
nobody else
just out-
does, but Luffy does somehow, because
exactly,
like it's so
just
big.
out of nowhere.
Oh man.
Yeah. So it's just like a thought occurrence that just comes to him, and he just blurts out the name, and it just totally makes sense to say it. And then the Gorosei members look at him, and he's like, "How the hell do you know? Like, that's a name that we've been trying to like forbid anyone from knowing, to the point where people have to make theories just on a possible cause of if the name even exists. But somehow you know exactly what it is, and you have the Nika Nika fruit too, so you're too much of a threat." And that's how Luffy becomes even more of like a huge nuisance to the world government. He possibly escapes,
Dude,
possibly
That
Yeah.
is such a fire take, and something popped in my head where obviously this arc is, I think it's Sabaody and Ohara like at the same time, like it's
mixed into one.
right, it's mixing both, and like I said, like punching Saturn is like, you know, basically the incident of Sabaody, and then shouting the name is the incident of Ohara. Like I said, like the Buster Calls are also part of the incident, but the catalyst for all of that is saying the ancient kingdom name and punching the celestial dragon, right? Well, what if, like, you know, like they're talking and like you're saying, like Luffy puts it all together, and what if he punches the celestial dragon as he says it, because it's like a you know, like he put it all together, and he's like, oh, like these people are super evil, like he's, you know what I mean, he's able to put together, like, this is the Ancient Kingdom name. If that's the name and they're hiding it, it probably means, you know, like Luffy's not that smart, but it could just be like a rush of things where it's like, you know, like he punches someone, or maybe he punches them before someone else says it, like Robin's about to reveal it to like carry on Clover's will, and he like gets in the way, and like, you know what I'm saying, like they're about to take out Robin or something because she's going to reveal it, and then he steps in or something like that. Like I just the idea that the name is shouted out, and maybe Luffy is punching someone at that moment to like let the name be shouted. Like the name can only be shouted if he punches that, you know, the Gorosei to like save whoever it is, right? Whether it's Vegapunk or Robin, because I think they both have close enough ties to Clover where they could step in and fulfill his will there. Probably Robin's better off, but I could see Vegapunk doing it too, and that's like how Vegapunk dies, maybe, like he gets killed when he says it. That's a fire take, my man. That's
we've been discussing it on OPU, and it's just like a random thought that we've been just circling around with our viewers and just chat in general, and it's a very good idea. I do like it a lot, and it also promotes the fact that we don't think that Vegapunk is getting off that island alive, and we think that one of the satellites is, and we think it's Lilith rather than the actual Stella of Vegapunk. So
why do you think Lilith? Curious.
I don't know. I think for one, she was introduced to us like the very first Vegapunk. She seems like a chaotic evil, or like a chaotic good, in the sense that she has like very like evil intentions, or like hella like, funny intentions when it comes to stuff. But I feel like as the Egghead arc is like developing more and more, we see more of a like interesting side to Lilith, where it just kind of makes sense that she could be like a temporary Straw Hat. Not the Straw Hat, but she could join the crew for the journey as what Vegapunk wanted to do. I don't know. It just makes sense to me out of everyone else, because I feel like every other Vegapunk satellite wouldn't fit with the crew as much, but Lilith kind of would.
Yeah, it's tough. Like, there's not like a reason I think any of them. I guess I'm just, you know, like picking one of them is gonna be hard for me. So like, I don't know. It's all I prefer that all the satellites die, because they're all just parts of Vegapunk, and like for me it'd be kind of weird to have just like a part of him existing. But at the same time, that could maybe be a lesson where like he wasn't listening enough to like one of the sides of his consciousness or something. You know what I mean? Like kind of vaguely speaking.
And it bites him back.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, and I see a bunch of comments in the chat saying Luffy's really smart, and like he has this like whole intellect to him. And in my opinion, it's so funny to me how whenever like the most important pieces of information are revealed, somehow there's some cases where Luffy already knows completely about it. Which is why I feel like him knowing about the Ancient Kingdom's name this whole entire time, or just during the duration of Egghead, he just somehow blurts it out, makes complete sense to me. Like if we go back to Marineford, for example, I had the biggest like preconceived notion that Luffy will have the biggest reaction to Roger being Ace's father, and I thought that whole review would be amazing. Luffy would get shocked that his brother was a son of the king of the pirates, and then it just gets revealed to us literally 10 seconds later that Luffy's like, oh yeah, I already knew that Roger was
so
Ace's
true.
father. Like, I already knew that from the get-go, from the beginning.
Man,
like, that was already known to me.
That is such a good point. And even like Luffy, like Luffy's his dad being dragon. That's like another thing where it's like, you know, it's like everyone else is like, bro, like, I mean, it's also weird that nobody else put that together, right? Like Monkey D. Dragon is the dad of Monkey D. Luffy, like until Garp said it, right? And so that's another thing where it's like, it might be like so obvious and we just haven't done it, and Luffy noticed how obvious something is, you know, or like he just, like you said, like he knows it. So whenever he says it, we're like, oh my god, like that, you know, how did nobody else notice and stuff? But like we've kind of already seen that before, so I kind of like that. That is really interesting. So I'm gonna get. Oh, you got some thoughts on it, Eliz?
So my ideas of what's to come for Egghead, I think, is actually going to lead into Elbaf, which is what I believe Saturn's power is. Essentially, I think that there's multiple sun gods, and Luffy's fruit is just one interpretation of a sun god. And it gets even more complicated when there's multiple different types of sun god. Like, for example, there could be Nika, there could be another one with a different name. And that doesn't necessarily mean there's only one fruit based off Nika, which was Luffy's. There could be other fruits based off of Nika, because it could be the idea of what Nika is births these powers. So Luffy's fruit specifically has the name Nika, but there could be other fruits that are based off Nika, but they just have different names because they went about achieving that power in a different way. And I believe that Saturn is going to be one of those people. In fact, I think all of the planetary powers are gods that are trying to emulate this idea of a sun god. With Saturn being particularly interesting because when you play with etymology, as Oda loves to do, Saturn in Japanese sounds a whole lot like Satan, because they're not going to pronounce the R in Saturn. It'd be more like Saturn, which sounds like Satan.
True.
And I think it'll be really mind-blowing twist, because we're so caught up with the idea of just Luffy being the sun god, that to show that there's other sun god powers. In fact, I think that there's fruits we already know very well that are also sun god fruits. But that's a little too far-fetched, so I'm just going to stay on topic. Saturn, I think, is going to be based off what the Elbafs believed were the sun god. So these different sun gods are really what different cultures perceived or believed what the sun god is, which is very it emulates the real world, because if you just think of the sun god, it's very monotheistic. It's kind of like what I was saying before. It's like if they had a satellite that was the sun, it would just completely outshine the rest. It's like once you have that, the other ones don't even seem all that godly, really. So that's actually what this post right here is. It's this around this is all different languages: Arabic, Hebrew, Sanskrit, and it's just this idea of they all really believe the same thing, just under different paths to the same truth. So I think that it'll be an Elbaf version of the sun god. Now, why do I think this? Honestly, it's hard for me to even dig into my own crazy brain and give a concrete answer. But I'll at least say this. There's this a lot of parallels to Sabaody, right? We have Kizaru coming here. Well, when Kizaru fought the Straw Hats, he fought alongside pacifistas, which are robots. And pacifistas, there's the primary Kuma, and then there's all the other copies of Kuma. And I think that'll actually parallel something that happened in the past, where there was a primary robot man, and then there were mass-produced copies of this robot man. And we actually have a giant robot under Egghead.
Right.
He even has what looks like a Viking helmet. So I believe that that is a mass-produced version of what we're going to see Saturn to be. And that's one of the reasons why it's going to be Satan imagery, because the horns, being sun god, I think this sun god will actually have the fire abilities, unlike what we see with Luffy. We'll actually see a sun god that uses what you would think is a sun god. And the amount of foreshadows to this, I believe, are astronomical. I'll just go give one real quick. You know, I made the parallel between Vegapunk and Emu potentially having their satellites. And what's cool is, like I mentioned, that maybe the assistant is a bunny and represents the moon. And if you were to go look at Vegapunk satellites and go in order, what the planets would be. So for example, Shaka would be Mercury. Number 3 is Edison, and he has the plug on his head, but in a way it kind of looks like it could be bunny ears. Cool, right? Number 6 is York. Now, the name scheme from 1 to 5 all involve the moon, right? And satellites of that nature. But then there's York. For whatever reason, York is not moon related. So what is important about York? Well, following my crazy far-fetched theory that they are actually mirroring the planetary gods, if that is Saturn, Saturn actually has moons that are named after Roman gods, which makes sense. They all are named after Roman gods. So of course they're going to have moons named after Roman god. But then Saturn has a collection of moons that are named after Norse gods, which perfectly ties into my idea that 6 represents Saturn, which is tied to Elbaf. And then that's what makes York make sense, because York is referred to Nordic. There's an area in England, I believe, it's called Yorkshire, and it refers to the Scandinavian area of that place. So then, if my theory is correct that it is based off Elbaf, then it makes perfect sense why she's actually named York. And then she's the giant one of the satellites. So that's one thing. Another thing that makes me think it's tied to Elbaf is this: there's foreshadows of a giant mech that is related to fire, and that's what our residential crewmate Frankie, fire breathing Frankie. That was his old title. You know, he doesn't really rep that anymore, but he is still fire breathing Frankie.
Yep.
And he has what's known as the Shogun, which is so odd. Like, why out of all the characters would he have a Shogun? You know, he doesn't really have much Wano related things. But I think that's actually foreshadowing one of the previous Saturns, and that was a giant mecha shogun named Odin, which sounds super random, but was from Wano, an Elbaf warrior in Wano, being a big giant iron shogun. And it's not a coincidence that there's a character named Odin from Wano. Then you have the Frankie Shogun, the fire breathing thing, and this idea of a father figure being fire and a big giant robot and a tank. Then you look at what's his name, Beijing, and his thing is the fire tank pirates, and he's the big father. So that's just me. I'm rambling, but I'm just giving an example of just off the top of the head all the different connections I can make. Maybe one day I'll make a video on this, but that's just my prediction of where this is going. Is we're going to see a big giant robot attacking Egghead, and they might spin it as if like that was Vegapunk creation that malfunctioned and attacked the island or something like that.
Well, the one thing I want to build off of first is you were mentioning like the satellites, and like there's 6 Vegapunks and 5 Gorosei and whatever. One thing that I think is really interesting is, you know, York is 6, right? And you were bringing up Yorkshire and whatever else, but York, I think, because you bring up a lot of ways to pronounce things and stuff. I mean, York, R's and L's can always be swapped, so it could also be yolk, right? And we're at Egghead, yolk.
Egghead.
And so then that makes me think also, like, what does a yolk look like? Like, it's kind of like a sun, right? Like, I mean, it's an orange ball. I mean, that's, you know, definitely stretching it there a little bit, but that could be the idea. And then you build towards where, like, okay, well, the other 5 are like the planets, and then maybe that's a sign that the sun, you know, like York is the sun. And then I've talked about this before, like, maybe One Piece is almost repeating itself, right? Like whatever's happening now basically happened in the past, and now, like we see here, like the 6th satellite is trying to like rise above essentially, and then, like I said, like that yoke, like the sun or whatever, it maybe that's also a tie there as well, where like the 5 Gorosei are like planets, and then the 6th one, they did have a 6th one, but maybe it rose above them somehow, and they just kind of fell under it, and so maybe they are like machines, like you're saying, and then maybe the attack is going to be, you know, like a mech thing or whatever it is, because maybe Saturn is a tech or maybe a hologram and can, you know, do whatever, but it like technologically focused, right? I like that a lot, honestly. I think there's a good chance. And Brandon King also brought up Odin, like the Odin of Wano, and then Odin, you know, in Norse mythology. I always thought that was funny too. It's like maybe Oda made Odin in Wano like Odin. You know what I mean? Like he's gonna like throw us off a little bit there. So that's a fire take.
Frankie met Odin, by the way.
Oh, that's what a crazy connection. That kind of stuff really sells me, like when Oda throws stuff like that in there.
Also, I wanted to point out, you were talking about the Atom Tree before, and I wanted to make this brief point that Frankie talks about the Atom Tree specifically being from a war-torn and battle-made island that is experiencing wars all the time. And then we get Elbaf's introduction, and it talks about how it's being faced with war constantly over and over again. So in my opinion, that's like a 99% sure statement that like shows that the Atom Tree is the big tree that that Elbaf has. So it's that I feel like that's 99% like for sure.
I'm with you 100%. And I mean, we probably don't have time, but that leads into a whole other discussion on it. Ties back to some of the stuff earlier where like we have the Adam tree and the Eve tree, and like Adam and Eve tie to the Garden of Eden, ties to, you know, I mean, Christianity in general, right? Obviously, like the origin story, and you know, it. Who knows how deep that thread goes is basically it. You know what I mean? Like once we see that like that could be why Oda's been saving it till the end, right? The Adam tree.
Yeah.
It's like it's going to tell us a lot about how the world works, kind of deal. So
Totally makes sense.
so I want to give a quick shout out to Juna Hikero. I think I'm saying your name almost right. I'm sorry, Juna. You said when the Gorosei go to action, they turn into the Korosei. Now I'm not super good at Japanese, so someone tell me if I'm wrong here, but Ko means like child, right? So are you saying like they get weak? Is that basically it? I hope not. I hope that's not the case. If that is, or if I'm misreading it, I don't know. I'm not super good at Japanese, but I don't think I have any other super chats. Want to make sure I didn't skip any. Okay. Well, with that being said, I'm going to move into our last question for the day, which I don't actually have a slide for. I forgot to make it. I like ending my streams with this every time, so I'm just gonna use the original one. What I want to hear from both of you is just generally, what are you guys most excited for? And now this can be in the story, this can be a community question, like you're excited to see more of your friends get caught up in One Piece. Whatever it is, what are you excited about the most when it comes to the future of One Piece? I want to hear from Elids first. We'll go in alphabetical order.
Okay. I just want to see the explanation of how the ways of the world works. I see now the community is becoming a lot more open-minded that what they once thought was just the bare bones. Because I've been working on this stuff for years, and I've been saying for years, there's more than just the three Hakis. There's evolutions that are even more beyond just the idea of, oh, here's Armored Haki, and then here's Advanced Armored Haki. I think that there's 7 colors of Haki instead of just 3. And the evolution is not just going up each color as if it was a staircase, but actually each color can be worked on and mastered and perfected. And some people are just better at certain elements. So, for example, Virgo focused so much on Armored Haki, yet we never seen him use Ryo. So what's up with that? Like, is he just an idiot? Or maybe he was aware of this power, but he was just so good at focusing on hardening that is why he just focused on only that. And I think that hardening in particular is going to become very relevant. This black coating, which a lot of people I think believe is simply just black because it's so easy to notice in manga and whatnot. But if Oda wanted, he could have made it a different color and still keep it black in the manga. It's black and white. I think it also ties into the idea of a chi spectrum, and that the lowest vibration of the spectrum is called earthly matter. It's the element of earth, and it's colored black. And Haki means supreme chi. So one of the things I think we're going to see in Elbaf is another version of Advanced Armored Haki that isn't going to be Ryo, but is actually going to be a more refined version of what armament coating is. And that is actually a layer of basically metal. It's not literal metal, it's a manifestation of metal from their spiritual energy. But I think that's how we're going to see how these robots are actually made. Because if you notice, Vegapunk, as smart as he is, he doesn't even understand how this robot was made. He doesn't understand what powers it. And if there's something as simple as just like, oh, he needs more energy, well, then he could at least turn it on. Even if he didn't have sustainable amount of energy, he could at least turn it on. But to his knowledge, he doesn't know anything that could power it. And I think that's because it's not a science-based answer. It's actually going to be a spiritual answer, in that it's the energy of the person. And I think that's going to help us to learn about the different types of devil fruits as well. Is that I believe Logias are actually supposed to be the energy of what I call the prime user. Or if you are a fan of Parvision, he calls it the seed user. Basically, it's the first person that created the power that eventually became the devil fruit. So I think the Logias represent that their energy, their ether. And that's why, more often than not, it's only Logias we really see channel their devil fruit into vehicles or things that they could operate. Um, there are a few exceptions, but for the most part, we have Smoker and his bite, we have Ace and his boat, Anel and the Ark. It's usually Logias that power things, which
Very true.
I think is again bringing up Frankie's relevance as being a metal man, because he has a power source that isn't electricity or fire, it's soda, it's cola.
Right.
And it's this idea that really it's not specifically what makes sense scientifically to be the power source, but what it means to the individual. So I think in Elbaf, we're going to learn they have that armament so strong that it's like they create metal armor on themselves. And I think that could even apply to their craftsmanship, and we might see a hammer that is made out of wood, but similar to how black blades are made, has their armament infused into this hammer. So then it is technically wood, but it's also metal at the same time.
Like Usopp's hammer?
Which gives it this, like, precisely where I'm going with this. Because I realized I didn't answer your question earlier, and it's still relevant to what we're talking about right now. And you asked me about the Kablarans, and I never answered what I think Usopp could be tied to. One of the missing races of One Piece, I think, are plant people. And this idea of missing races in One Piece, I think they're actually in One Piece, they're just diluted forms of what they once were. So I think the plant people that existed in the past are what we know now as just the Tontaras. But in the past, they didn't look just like that. They were actually they looked like plants. In fact, I think there were two different type of dwarves. There was plant dwarves and there were bug dwarves. But that's neither here nor there. The point is that I think that there were dwarves that were wood people. And I think Usopp could actually derive from that. I mean, one of the inspirations for Usopp that's obvious is Pinocchio. And Pinocchio is a puppet, a wooden boy.
Yep.
Not only that, Usopp looks like a Tengu. And what do we know Tengu Yama to be? What was his title? It was be a blacksmith. It was him creating things. And Usopp, we've known, he creates weapons. He's the whole reason Nami can do what she can do. So I think we're going to see that Elbaf, the culture of Elbaf, doesn't just belong to giants, but also once belonged to dwarves that lived with the giants together.
Oh, that would be so fitting,
That's
right?
what I'm looking forward to.
Because of like the size difference, right? Wow. Well, well, first off, what I want to say is, everyone, if you haven't subbed to Elids, go do it right now. I know you I don't want to speak for you, but I think you said earlier you're going to work on some more videos that are like hockey based, right? I think you were saying that earlier with Parvision. I can't remember exactly. So a lot of that. So I know you talked a lot about hockey there, and I agree with a lot of the sentiments you're saying. It's basically, will or hockey, like the various forms of it can almost mimic devil fruits to a degree, or devil fruit powers are that, right? Or something in that realm of things. If you want to see more on that, definitely go sub to Elids. I saw Prince said it earlier. He's like 15 or less subscribers away from 1,000. So if just a couple of you guys, like a dozen of you guys go over there and sub, we can hit 1,000 during the stream. I think this man definitely deserves it. Like Tosmorn said it, like, even if you don't agree, the theories are just awesome, or like it's going to make you think deeper, right? Where you're going to want to go that extra layer and be like, okay, well, I wasn't even thinking about tying it to this, but there clearly is a connection, so now I got to rethink, right? That's I've had that quite a few times watching his videos, so I'm excited to see what you come up with, man. I'm always looking forward to your videos. So and then Prince, what are you most excited for what's coming up with One Piece?
Everything, man. Literally, it's so hard to pick one thing, especially because One Piece is so grand. But some points, Elias was already talking about it, how just the way the world works, whether it's in the future, Void Century, how the Ancient Kingdom, all that stuff, Joy Boy, Emu, like literally all the mysteries that like have been foreshadowed since the very beginning. Then there's also the final saga, final wars, 1v1s that we finally need to expect, like Mihawk versus Zoro. Will we see Luffy versus Shanks, Laugh Tale, the One Piece? There's so many things. I just can't pick one thing. But for right now, my best answer is the next arc. Just one arc at a time, just experiencing One Piece is enough for me. And I'm already loving Egghead right now. And yeah, that's pretty much it. And I did want to talk about what Eliz was saying before with devil fruit powers, like the whole seed thing and like the idea of the user turning into the fruit. I completely 100% agree with that. It's on my Sabo theory video. It's like the second/third part of the theory, but the whole theory is pretty much the reason why Sabo can awaken the devil fruit is because he knows Ace's will, and Ace's will was stored into the devil fruit itself because he was the previous user of the fruit. So how it works is it's a constant cycle where Ace had a will with the fruit, he died, fruit respawned, but Ace's will got stored into the fruit, and since no one knows Ace better than Sabo and Luffy, Sabo is able to awaken his devil fruit because he knows Ace so well. And the reason why I'm so convinced about that is because in Dressrosa, there's a panel where he's literally holding up his hand that's on fire, and it looks like he's literally talking to Ace using the Maramara no Mi. And from then on, I just, like, it sparked in my mind that it has to be that Ace's will is stored into the devil fruit. Just makes no sense.
No, I'm 100% with that, and I think that could even go down a bigger like line of thought where, like, you know, you're not dead until you're forgotten, right? Like that's the lesson that Hiryuluk, who is one of my all-time goats. Oh, if we don't even have time to talk about him, but that, I mean, all-time goat. That's why he said that, and I think devil fruits, like we're talking about hockey and will, that's it's all the same thing, right? Like you're not dead till you're forgotten. It's because people carry that will on. They remember you. And here's the thing, like you know, after a couple generations, there's probably not going to be many people that remember me, like unless I'm like in the record books, you know, or whatever. But like let's say like my child carries on my will, their child carries on that will, the will exists the entire time, right? It like, and maybe it is molded by the next person, and that's exactly what I think all this devil fruit stuff can mean, this inherited will. We're talking about like, you know, like devil fruits, like these powers kind of like permeating through time, because like devil fruits can just keep being passed on or whatever. And that makes me think of things, I brought this up on the channel before with like Bink Sake. It's like a song that that everyone sings, and it's like, who is this Bink guy? Like he's never going to be forgotten because of this song. And so why is that important? Like just like we're talking about, you know, you're not dead till you're forgotten. I always thought that was real crazy, where it's like, we got like one of the most important pirate songs in the story. It's about sake, which is obviously important. That's like friendship and everything, like it ties to it. And he's never going to be forgotten because of that. So when we talk about, you know, you're talking about Ace being remembered through the fruit and all that, it's like that. To me, it is like, all that is will, or whatever you want to call it, right? Like all that stuff, that it can be a song, it can be the devil fruit, it can just be living with the person and learning from them, right? Like carrying that will forward, I think is like, it's just gonna keep being important. You know, it's one of the main tenets of One Piece, and I think like this form of will you're talking about, like with hockey, I think that we're gonna learn like hockey is will, but then devil fruits, like carrying that will on, that is also hockey to a degree, right?
Man, you took the words out of my mouth because you talked about Big Sake, and it's kind of a spoiler for a future video, but the whole idea that I had was that the reason Joy Boy's fruit, or Luffy's fruit, like the Sun God Nika fruit, was able to bounce around for 800 years and not be like, or eaten, or like, well, we don't know if it was eaten or not, but just bounced around away from the government, was because of Big Sake's song continuously being sung throughout the different centuries with pirates. Which is how it was able to exist in the first place, and thus brought it to the correct user with Luffy.
Yep. Like I've even brought up that sake is the eternal energy source, because it's just never going to be forgotten, and it's burning or something. Like I like what you brought, like what I brought, or like, these ideas could be combined with each other. Like it could be devil fruits, or maybe that fruit, or whatever it is powered, or I don't even know if powered by is the right word, but they're interconnected, right? Like it's weird that the pirates have had this song carrying forward, and like Shanks was singing it, and Shanks got the Gomu Gomu no Mi, right? And he gave it to Luffy, and then we know Brook is singing it, and Brook, I've brought up on this channel 8 million times how much I think Brook connects to Joy Boy and all that, right? He also has Jesus vibes. He walks on water, he died and came back to life, etc. He has an afro. Yasuye had an afro. Yasuye has a bunch of Jesus vibes. I mean, he was crucified on a cross, you know, and executed. So ending point is yes.
One of my videos.
Which one? The Yasu one? Or
was that idea was the Bink Sake is the holy grail, because that's the blood of Jesus that was turned to wine. Naruto, I had this idea that Bink Sake is not just the Holy Grail, but it's actually Luffy's devil fruit. It's the Hito Hito no Mi Maro Nika. It is the Gomu Gomu no Mi.
I love
And
that.
Bink Sake was what was getting it around all these years. And when Luffy says, I've heard this song, the person he heard it from was Shanks, and the person he got the fruit from was Shanks. So that's one of my first videos where I really went in on the whole Joy Boy is Jesus thing.
I love that. The Bink Sake, or like the theory, because it's not obviously sake, but like sake could just be a placeholder, you know what I mean? I
No, 'cause
love
the thing
that.
is, if you look at it, right, like Jesus turned water into wine. So
Yeah,
like
multiplied it, yeah.
Jesus' blood being seen as wine, and then wine, like it's not, it's alcohol in a sense, and then sake being the universal wine in One Piece because it's Japanese. But like we see different types of sake in One Piece, whether it's actual sake or like bottles of wine. So ties
That's
really well.
fire. That's fire.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, everyone, with all this talk about Bink Sake, I want to thank you all for being here for Dak Sake, for Davey Dak Fight Round 7. Obviously, I think, these creators have awesome theories, and that's why I wanted to bring them on. I've talked to them before, and if you somehow weren't impressed enough during the stream, they have plenty of videos. Like, Elidge just mentioned the Jesus, the Holy Grail, Bink Sake, Jesus blood type, whatever. I don't want to butcher the name, but you know what I mean. That what we just talked about. Go check that one out. He has other great videos. Prince does as well. And I do want to say that. So I don't have the Davey Dak fight planned for next week yet. Want everyone to know that. There probably will be one. I just don't have a person for it yet. But the next group one. So if you guys enjoyed this style where we have a little bit of a round table of ideas to share, the next group one, so whenever that break week is going to be King Recon, Kev, and Zaki, if you guys are familiar with those creators. So you have that to look forward to. I don't know when the break week is yet, so I can't really plan it, you know what I mean, until we know for sure. But I have talked to them, so that'll be really fun. But so that's gonna be it for today. But Elids and Prince, do you guys, or I guess we'll start with Elids, go in alphabetical. Anything you want to plug for the future video, like a video you have coming soon or anything like that?
Future videos, I do plan on expanding a little bit more on the idea of Joy Boy's family. His mom being Mary Bell, that's the name I came up with because it actually would mean Joy Girl. And I think he had a father that has ties to Lunarians, and he might even have a brother, which will not be too surprising when you think about the devil fruits of Luffy's brother. But I actually would want people to, if you're interested in this idea of there being 7 colors, I have to fix my fingers, 7 colors of hockey. I have a series on YouTube already called Understanding Hockey. You can check out my channel, and there's a playlist called Understanding Hockey I made years ago about why I believe that there's 7 colors of hockey and what each of them represent, and it has aged very well. And I've learned so much since then, so I do plan on rebooting that series at one point. But if you're interested and you just want like a good, easy way to understand a grasp of the idea that there could be 7 colors of hockey, check out Understanding Hockey.
Definitely check him out. And Prince?
Let's see. First off, I want to say this man Elish is 8 subs away from 1,000 subscribers. He deserves monetization 100%. So if you haven't already subbed to him, even after the humongous amount of links that 3 Day has sent in the chat, make sure you subscribe. But in terms of me, I have a couple of videos coming up pretty soon. One being a Will of D video, which pretty much goes in depth on what I think D stands for in One Piece, and also a video on the end game of One Piece. Pretty much what I think the structure is going to be on the end game, how different things are going to correlate when it comes to the world government, Luffy, Blackbeard, whatever it may be. And also another thing I do want to shout out is One Piece University. If you guys like, I know Dak has already been involved with it, and it's very similar to this round table style of discussion. It's me, Marshall D. Preach, Majin Crow, Daimyo-san Zane, and John Sherrod. All 5 of us talk every single week on Friday, literally anything One Piece related. It's usually chapters and the new chapters that are released, but even break weeks. We took a break this week, ironic, but usually on break weeks we just talk about anything One Piece related. So yeah, one thing I would plug as well, One Piece University. Make sure you go
Yeah.
subscribe to that as well.
Definitely go check out One Piece University.
Yes.
Prince, did you hear him?
Yeah.
You
I was asking, do you have guests?
Do I have guests? Yes, we had Threevil recently, Dak, Kev, and Geo, if you know Geo from Twitter. Big man who has the wildest takes on Twitter. So had those 4 guests come on, but we're obviously looking for more. And if you want to join, just hit me up on Discord, let me know. I'll set it up straight away. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Awesome group of guys. You don't want to talk to them about sports. Their sports opinions are a little questionable. But the One Piece opinions, some of them are good. Some that depends.
Nah, that's crazy.
Depends if the Lakers are playing. Then you know.
Man, the Lakers are the 7th seed right now. I don't want to hear it.
Hey, but the One Piece opinions are good. That's what matters. That's what matters. So everyone, go check out OPU. Those are a really good group of guys. I talk to them pretty regularly. They're awesome. Definitely check them out. Definitely check out these 2 guys. I know we were giving a big push for Elids to hit 1K. He's almost there, but make sure you go check out Prince as well. He is monetized, but the grind never stops. You know what I'm saying? So
very true.
So
I mean, to be fair, I was at like 1.18, and now I'm almost at 1.2K. So shout out to everyone who did subscribe. I really do appreciate it.
Hey, really appreciate that, guys. Like I said, I mean, you guys know this, from being around the channel because I've only been here for 9 months on YouTube, but I've been very blessed, like coming from where I did and getting all the help I did. So I'm just trying to give back a little bit because I mean, like I said, these guys' ideas blow me away. Like they need more subs and everything. This is, I mean, it's just, I mean, Elids has had Afro theories before I did. You know what I'm saying? So Afro Jin, I know all that stuff. So we can't.
I mentioned it one time.
Well, we can't get
passing before you made yours.
Yeah, it wasn't that the Afro was the One Piece, but I know you had some Afro videos, but no, I mean, obviously, just definitely go check these guys out. So I want to give you guys all a huge thank you. Thanks to these creators for joining me. Thank all you guys for helping us out and being awesome chatters as usual. I love this little sector of the community we got going on here. This is awesome. So thank you guys. I hope you all have an awesome weekend, and I'll